All right, we are officially live. Hello, everyone. I can't believe 2024 almost is officially over. I am joined with my Shade team, all different types of editors, here to go through our top 5 picks of 2024 for films for this year. We together have screened hundreds of films, and I'm excited to dive into what each of you selected this year in comparison to me. But joining me, we've got Steve, Alfred, and Afrim with us today. Karlo could not join us, but Karlo will be with us in spirit. We'll talk about his 5 picks of 2024 as well. But if you have not subscribed to our channel already, be sure to do that right down below and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up and feel free to ask any comments throughout this discussion of our 5 picks for 2024. Hello, guys. How's it going?
Hey, Marissa.
Hello.
Alfred, you're going to have to stay close to the mic because it's super quiet on your end. But I figure we could do some honorable mentions to kind of start with ones that didn't quite make the cut. And then we'll go from 5 down to our top pick. Who wants to start with some honorable mentions, or should we start with Karlo since he's not with us? I guess we can throw his out there.
I got to pull up my honorable mentions really quick. So go ahead.
It's okay. We'll start with Karlo's.
Okay, let's start with Karlo. So Karlo has 3 honorable mentions, starting with Transformers 1, Ghostlight, and then Black Box Diaries.
Okay.
And I think those latter 2 were actually from Sundance.
Yeah. I remember. I think we actually interviewed the directors of what was it, Ghostlight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like a couple, I think.
I feel like Karlo's bias. Sundance was like one of his favorite festivals, which Steve, you'll get to enjoy for the first time now too.
I know. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
My honorable mentions, one of them is an animation, Wild Robot, and then my other one is Wicked for more of a musical theme. Tough call picking 5 this year, but I feel like Wicked, especially for somebody who does go to a ton of Broadway shows. Actually, I think the adaptation of the Broadway show and having them kind of put it into a 2-part segment was really cool, just because I feel like the Broadway show in general was so jam-packed. I honestly don't know how they told the full story while we were sitting there for 3.5 hours, but I think that the movie actually depicts and does a better job of spreading out the theme. And it gives us more to take in since it is kind of a big, thick storyline. So I had to give them credit for being able to adapt a Broadway show and then moving it to the big screen, which I think a lot of the times when people try and do that, it's a misstep, and I don't think it quite really comes out the way that one imagines. And I do think that, like, seeing the background of Ariana Grande specifically, like, you would think that she would be given this role on a silver platter, but it was really cool seeing, like, her audition tapes behind the scenes of, like, how difficult it was for her to work in achieving the actual role of Glenda. So really cool to see, like, A-listers having to work their butts off trying to, like, actually earn these roles, and then also seeing characters like Elphaba flying through the entire set while having to sound and be on pitch the whole time is pretty incredible to me. And that's why that one landed in my honorable mention. Wild Robot basically made me cry, and I actually didn't want to see it. I thought that the trailer was horrendous, and every time it came on, I was like, damn, I don't want to actually see this film. I'm sorry. Like, this looks terrible. And then I watched it, I was like, it's so good.
Well, Chris said is amazing.
The first trailer was terrible.
Terrible. And how many years? I feel like it's been going on for like 2 years, the Wild Robot trailer. Or has it been since like COVID? I feel like has it been with us for 5 years? 5 years of Wild Robot trailers.
That
I remember.
Was
I think
unexpected delight.
Yeah, I think you showed me the trailer. I think Alfred, you might have showed me the trailer in Toronto, and you were like, "Hey, check this thing out." Yeah, and the first trailer I watched it, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is not interesting at all." And then shortly after that, they actually, I think, put out a second trailer, and I was like, I actually said it to you, Alfred. I was like, this is what I was waiting for. Okay, finally. And then all of a sudden, the movie, everyone that screened it at the festival was like, dude, this made me cry. It was like so good.
So good.
I mean, the trailer to me came off like something that the trailer department had to miraculously put together to get people into the theater because the movie was going to be that bad. And then the actual film, you're like, well, this is pretty darn good.
I just feel like there's so many robot stories too, and it was a different kind of story. And it was a robot on an interesting mission of like having to be compatible with its direction of what it was programmed to do, and then all of a sudden it wasn't used to having a animal being programmed as like their host, and so instead of like giving up and just like dying as a robot in this forest, it's like, you know what, screw it, like I'm gonna find a task and I'm gonna make this happen. So really just cool idea and concept, I think. Anyone else's honorable mentions? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
Steve.
I've got some honorable mentions. Sure, of course. I should also preface that my movies are always going to be horror and thrillers.
Steve is our horror editor, so it would not make sense if Steve did not have one horror film in his top 5. I would have to question what we have you writing on, Steve.
So it was actually a really, really good year. I have 22 films on my list, so I could pick a couple of my will probably be in my top 10 as honorable mentions for this show, and one of those would be Strange Darling. Strange Darling was a really interesting thriller, not horror film, about a serial killer, and the film has a great twist in it that was completely unexpected, and it turned the movie from a typical kind of serial killer, creepy dude stalking a woman into something really special. So Strange Darling is one that I definitely want to go and see that one again to just kind of catch some of the clues that I missed the first time. It was a lot of fun. I would also like to mention 2 films together that came out, I guess, within a month of each other, and it's really bizarre when this happens in movies, is when 2 films that are basically the same film get released the exact same year. And this has happened before. We had like Wyatt Earp came out the same year as Tombstone, and there's other films like this. And so this would be Immaculate, which came out first. This is the Sydney Sweeney film about the nun who is kind of experiencing some sort of sinister activities going on at the nunnery, which she has been sent to in Italy. And then what did we get? Like a month later, we get the the first Omen, which was a prequel to the very earliest Omen back in 1978 or whenever the film came out. And it's really, really strange, the similarities between these 2 films. And what's even more strange is that I can't pick one over the other as to which one I liked the best.
They tied.
They were so good. First of all, the Omen, the first Omen is, I think, better than the first Omen, the original Omen. And that's probably a really hot take, but man, because I watched those original Omen movies, the original trilogy, before I saw this, and I was like, God, this movie's kind of boring. It's not really that good. But this one was really good. And then the movie Immaculate, the Sydney Sweeney kind of vehicle, this was kind of her passion project. Wow. Her performance in that was just so gutsy. It was really cool.
The end scene. Never look at her the same, will you, Steve? No. So I'll limit my honorable mentions to those for now, but I will be coming out with a top 10 list. We actually screened Immaculate at South by Southwest this year, Steve, and it was so creepy because where we're seated, all the nuns were sitting behind us. So we're sitting there like looking back, they're not moving at all. And I'm just like, this feels weird. And then the red nuns came through, and that's when things got really intense. So we're sitting there like, this is really creepy. And then they started singing together. So like the whole ambiance really set the tone for the film. But actually after the film, I wanted more questions answered. So I actually went up to the director and the writer. I was like, I need more answers. I need this. And I'm not leaving this bar till you give me them. And I was left unsatisfied, unfortunately.
Oh no, you're one of those moviegoers that needs those answers. Huh?
I wanted names of nuns. Like, I was getting deep. I was like, I need to know, who is this chick? And why is she not doing this? Or why does she do this? You know, yeah. And maybe, potentially, I got out of him that maybe there may be a 2. We shall see.
I hope so. And it's interesting, too, in that this was kind of also a year of returning to sort of genres that we haven't seen in a while. And that both of those movies were just kind of examples of the 70s little sub-genre called nunsploitation films. And there's a number of these films with just featuring like these hardcore nuns. And it was really fun to just kind of see that again, nunsploitation.
Nunsploitation. Yeah,
I think I lost to that hardcore nuns.
I just watched, have you seen Cuckoo yet, Steve?
No, it's one of those films that I can't believe I haven't seen it yet. But yeah,
so I just wrote my review actually yesterday on it, and there are some interesting kind of correlations to Immaculate. So I think if you enjoyed that, you're definitely going to like this one.
Oh, great.
No nuns, unfortunately, but you'll get some other stuff.
Yeah.
Steve, in The Strange Darling, how did you like the cinematography?
The cinematography was good. Why do you ask that?
Well, the reason I ask is, I know Afrim is on the call here, and it was Giovanni Ribisi's first role as a cinematographer. So the medic from Saving Private Ryan.
Afrim's like...
Wow, that's actually pretty impressive. That's good.
Nice.
But not the medic from Saving Private Ryan. Don't you mean Phoebe's brother? Or do I have the wrong person?
The guy that Ben Affleck
or the guy from Boiler Room? Yeah.
Boiler Room.
So,
a top fave.
Yeah. The poor man's Glengarry Glen Ross.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, we sound really snobby right now.
Collection of films.
So, what are we up? Is it me or is it Alfred? Are we doing honorable mentions? Or
yeah, you two haven't. Just me and Steve are the ones who've gone. So, leaving it up to you guys.
Alfred,
mentions.
you want me to go first or no?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, so it's weird because I didn't understand the assignment correctly, and what I did was I have my top 5 films that I have seen, but then I also made a list of like, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, like 12 or 13 films that were ones that like I wish I had seen, and that list I'll talk about later, I guess. But I did have 2 on the edge, so I'll just put those as my honorable mentions for the top 5. One of them is Heretic, the kind
Very
of thriller, religious thriller horror film.
Steve,
starring Hugh Grant.
I haven't seen it. I have not seen it. I'm holding my head in shame.
I'm only putting that like. I mean, honestly, I'll say I think this year as a whole was fairly weak. I know that sounds terrible. I think it was kind of a weak movie year. So the fact that Heretic is even like on the cusp means that like I obviously didn't see enough really good films this year. But Heretic's good. It's not amazing. That's the only thing. I did like the first half of the film, like actually a lot more than I thought I would. But then when it went from like the religious stuff into like the straight up horror stuff, then I should like pass it on to Steve. All right.
After the real question here is, does Heretic count as nunsploitation?
Well, you'll just have to wait and find out.
Missionary exploitation.
Yeah.
Hey yo.
Hi-oh. So then, my other on the edge was a film that I saw. Also, it's kind of tough because a lot of the films I watched this year were at the festivals, and a lot of them, unfortunately, that were pretty damn good, like were not picked up yet. So I didn't want to include them because they haven't really been distributed, you know. So one that was distributed, thankfully, was a little movie called Thelma. It's not
Oh yeah.
not to be confused with Selma. It's very different. So basically,
Thelma and Louise.
Thelma is a night. Yeah, a night. It's about a 93-year-old woman who goes on like a Tom Cruise esque Mission Impossible mission because she gets
What?
scammed out of $10,000. Yeah, I know it sounds wild, but it's. I remember thinking when I watched it at I believe it was Sundance that this was the only film of the festival for the most part that I could like recommend to my parents. You know, like
Huh.
I feel like like not because it was like too dirty or too sexual or something, but it was like they will 100% be entertained by this movie because it's such a straightforward like a lot of the jokes are like these corny jokes about, aging and turning up and down a hearing aid and all this other stuff and my bones are achy and but it's like just good fun. And the reason why I knew also it was good fun was because the day after I watched it I was standing in line, queued up some might say, to go see another film, and I overheard this like really pretentious film reviewer like
Was it
like
you,
talking
Afrim? Were
about
you
the
listening to the echo
no,
of
no,
yourself?
no. I heard the voices in my own head. No, but I heard her talking about. She was like, yesterday I had to sit through Thelma. I mean, come on, like, where's the challenge here? And I'm like, not every movie has to challenge you. You know what I mean? Like,
Where's
She's
some
the
of them are
93.
challenge?
Is
just.
that not a
I
challenge?
know, like. Well, yeah, physically, yes, for sure.
Like, just
But
saying.
I mean, it's definitely one of those where like turn your brain off and just sit down for like 90 minutes and just have popcorn and enjoy the film. It's nothing special, but it's kind of just a fun ride that literally anybody can enjoy. So just because I didn't have a really good like my honorable mentions there because I haven't seen some of the better movies, unfortunately. Those two are probably my honorable mentions, and then I have another, the top five.
So is that our new award that we're going to give each year is films we can actually recommend to our parents?
Hey, there are surprisingly few
But everybody knows what
this year.
that means.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, exactly. Everybody knows what it means.
Yeah.
That's our new award. We'll tie that into 2025. All right, Alfred.
Films for dad.
All right. So my honorable mention, and I'm probably going to get flack by putting this in honorable and not in the top 5, but I was feeling a little spicy. So my first honorable mention will be Anora,
Yeah.
which
Sorry, you're going to get flack for that from me
Sorry,
already.
Afrim.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a lot of flack for that.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
But Anora is, coming into it, I actually didn't know too much about it other than, people were saying, okay, it's basically like Pretty Woman for the newer generations, and I could tell you right now it is not Pretty Woman for the newer generations
As a
except
Pretty
for
Woman
maybe
connoisseur,
one
I will
interchange.
also agree with that. And it's not
Yeah,
Cinderella
I,
either.
Well, I
but
love the
it's
director,
very
though.
good. Yeah,
Florida Project is one of my
it's
favorite movies.
yeah. So if you like that, you're probably gonna like Anora. It is actually filmed in New York. They did a lot in Coney Island. I thought it was, it's Afrim. You love Uncut Gems, right?
Oh, I love that movie, yeah.
So it's almost if you took a kind of romantic comedy and you blended it with, if that even makes any sense. Probably not.
No.
Okay, so
I
that's
mean, no. Yeah.
that's my first honorable mention. My second one I actually screened at South by, and that's Sing Sing with Coleman Domingo, and Coleman Domingo is amazing in it. And if you like The Wire, you're probably going to like Sing Sing. It's not as good as The Wire, but it's pretty close. And I think the most fascinating thing about Sing Sing is the supporting cast outside of Coleman Domingo is basically former prisoners. So the whole story of Sing Sing, right? It's about a rehabilitation program for inmates and for them to kind of redeem themselves. They're in this theater for the arts program, and Coleman Domingo is like the OG, the guy that started the program, and he's the one that gets people involved, right? And so what's fascinating is everyone around them are actual former inmates from the program. You're probably going to hear a lot thrown around in the media. This guy Clarence Macklin, who was one of the prisoners. It's really good, and it's something that we haven't really seen. You know, it's not as crazy violent as some other jail movies you do, like or series rather, like Oz. You know, it's more pensive, but it's an interesting twist on your typical kind of like prisoner drama.
So Coleman
Okay,
Domingo's
is that
not like
like
Rustin.
Not
is that
a
like Sing
Rustin,
Sing
no.
like in Ossining?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
Cool. All right.
That's,
Well, I
yeah.
guess we can move into our number 5 countdown. Who wants to start and go first?
Are we just gonna go 5, 5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 4, 4?
Yeah.
Round on the table.
All
Okay,
right,
good.
I guess we could.
Yes, Steve. Not all 5, but number 5.
Mambo number 5. Okay, so who wants to start? Who wants to kick off?
I could start. I'll start with a film I saw maybe early in the spring, and it's from the director Jane Schoenbrunn, who they directed a film called We're All Going to the World's Fair a couple of years ago that just kind of captivated me. And
Oh, we froze.
this is this time before and came out with this movie called I Saw the TV Glow.
I just reviewed that one, Steve.
Did you? I think I might have reviewed it earlier in the year too.
Oh shoot! Well, I guess we both reviewed it. Well, no, I thought it was an interesting, super retroed out film.
That's great because I can't wait to read your review of that, because that film to me was so. It's like one of those films where I think anybody can get something different out of it if you're just willing to kind of let it happen. And I remember writing in my review that probably most people will not be on board with this film because it is kind of it's very surreal. And so what it is it's a story of this boy and this girl, and they kind of form this attachment to each other based upon this 90s style
TV show,
Nickelodeon TV show thing called The Pink Opaque, and it's about this kind of like I don't know, they're like crime fighting girls or something.
Yeah,
I don't know exactly
they're like they're kind of like telepathic, and then they have superpowers that they can kind of use, but they're stronger together, right? When they like attack them or something. And they also have what do you call it? Tattoo. It's the pink opaque tattoo, which kind of looks like Pac-Man.
Yeah, exactly. And so this boy and the girl, and so the film is just filled with metaphor, and it's a perfect A24 kind of movie, you know, because this is this art house film that is the boy and the girl are clearly very lonely figures, and I think what the movie is trying to say is that there's kind of two paths you can take in life if you want to kind of get out of that shell and try to live more of a life, but those paths don't necessarily have to be positive. And while these two characters throughout their lives kind of went in different ways, I'm not so sure either one of them had a very positive outcome on.
It was an interesting ending, right, Steve?
Yeah, it was, and it just kind of showcased that loneliness can be, I don't know, not really contagious, but it can kind of feed off of each other. And these two characters, that's like all they had really was each other and this TV show. Which, and of course, there's a lot of this kind of metaphysical stuff and supernatural things going on, and I like that in a movie. I like movies that are very ambiguous and just kind of, it left me pondering the implications of the movie after I had seen it.
Yeah, I feel like it
So that
took
would
me a
be my
couple
number five.
days, Steve, to actually figure out like what I took from it because I was a little frustrated with the ending, but then I realized,
Yeah.
oh, this is kind of what it meant and what I was kind of feeling throughout watching it, and the ending was kind of just like sometimes life can just move by if we let it, and time can move so quickly, and before we know it, our time is gone and we're out of it. And it's kind of like you can either live in that moment and decide then and there, or just kind of watch everything pass you by, and next thing you know, it's too late to go back in time and fix that.
Yeah, I'd have to say overall it's a sad movie.
It was not happy, but it was very beautiful in color and texture.
Yeah,
It definitely made me think of the 90s.
yeah, yeah, very much so.
Afram,
Next.
what's your number five?
All right. Well, my number five. All right. Now, again, I have to caveat this with the fact that I feel like when I get to the other list afterwards, if we're all done and have time, I can mention the ones that like I wish I had seen. I can almost guarantee that like three or four of these would probably replace some of the ones on my top five. Some, not all. But I will have to say, number five is actually Amelia Perez.
That's on my
Uh,
list, but
I,
not five.
yeah, yeah. So I actually just watched it recently, and I don't know when it first started. I'm not really into musicals, so when the first time, like I think Zoe Saldana starts singing, like I don't know, maybe 5 minutes into the movie or something, I was like, oh wait, is this what this is?
I did
You
the
know?
same thing. I was like, I don't know if I can handle this.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a big like musical person, but I mean, again, look, if a movie's good, I'll watch whatever genre it is. If it just meets like a certain level of like quality, then I'm like I'm in. Same thing with a couple of years back when they came out with that movie Tick Tick Boom with Andrew Garfield.
Mm.
That was a musical and it was phenomenal. Like, I mean, I was like teary eyed. I was like really, really into it. And I didn't even care that it was a musical. Like, it didn't bother me at all. This one was kind of like, like when all was said and done, I was kind of wondering, like, did it really have to be a musical? Because the story itself was kind of interesting. But the songs to me were not super memorable. But again, it's all in Spanish. So, and I don't speak Spanish. So I don't know how I would really remember the songs. But in terms of like direction and the choreography and all that stuff, it's like that's like top quality stuff. Um, the story itself is pretty decent, but the production of the whole thing is just like really, if like you should just watch it. I mean, it's the way it's made is like beautiful.
Yeah, it's excellent.
I don't want to go into it too much because you already said it's on your list too, so
It's on my
you can
list. A
talk
little
about
bit higher, Afram.
it. Sorry,
It's also on my
sorry.
list.
All right, Alfred, what's your number five?
All right, so number five is, it's a little bit out there because it's not really in the running for international kind of at the Oscars, on the short list. But it did premiere at TIFF. I absolutely loved it. And it hasn't released in the US yet, but it has gotten a theatrical, or it is going to get a theatrical release tomorrow. Well, I guess that's today, in South Korea. And that is Harbin. And Harbin is basically a story kind of loosely told about a Korean freedom fighter, or a group of Korean freedom fighters that have decided to basically arrange a hit on the Prime Minister of Japan. And it's just it's bonkers.
I wasn't expecting
It's
that.
bonkers. It is like, it looks. I mean, I remember walking into TIFF, and I'm like, oh man, it's like super early. I didn't have enough coffee, and like the first shot is like a super high drone shot of this guy trying to walk across a glacier, and it was just so striking. And from that moment, it was just visceral visual after visceral visual, and you know, it's like, for anyone that watches a lot of South Korean stuff, like a lot of I know Marissa watches a lot of kind of action films from Korea, but it's so
Action
over
junkie.
the top, it's so stylized,
Koreans
it's
just
almost
take
like,
things to
you
the next
remember-
level.
yeah, they just go crazy, you know.
Above
It's
and
like
beyond.
You took a Tarantino movie and you went a little bit nutty, and it's just stylized, but it still looks good because the actors look good, and it's a really suspenseful movie. It's a thriller. By the time you get to the end, the movie feels like it's been like 45 minutes when you watch it, and you're just like, what the heck did I just watch? Is this true? And you go and Google it, and you're like, well, you know, parts of it are true, but it's definitely a movie you're gonna need to watch in theaters, and it's probably one of the nicest looking movies I think I've seen this year.
What was
So,
the name of that again?
Harbin, Harbin. There's plenty of blood, so Steve, I think you'll be okay. I think it'll qualify. I think you'll be okay. However, caveat, if you don't like reading subtitles, okay, so if you don't like reading English subtitles, that may be a problem, because you're going to get a lot of them, and you're even going to get subtitles that are trying to subtitle another language, because they kind of swap between Korean and Japanese, and sometimes you have to make do with what you see on screen. But it's really, really good.
Okay.
Well, I always say with Korean films, like girls in high school, in American films, it'll be a girl in high school pulling the other girl's hair, but in a Korean film, it's a girl burning the flesh of another girl with like a hot iron. So they always take it up another notch.
Camera and like amazing music, and you're like, wow, that looks cool.
It's just way more intensified. Sometimes it's hard watching Korean films going back and watching American films. It's just like, oh, I need more. I'm becoming like Steve. More gore, more blood. It's happening to me.
Well, then you,
Like
but
that
you
was
should see.
that was a romantical comedy.
Well, you got to see Train to Busan. Train to Busan.
Oh yeah.
One of the best Korean zombie movies. It's so good. Yeah. Of course,
Okay, so
Parasite.
sorry there are no zombies.
I'm sure everybody saw Parasite.
Steve.
Oh yeah, definitely saw Parasite.
Yeah, I saw Parasite. Yeah.
Yeah.
Parasite's good. It's
Eh.
so Harbin is not as good as Parasite as a whole, but also, you know, Parasite's nowhere as violent as Harbin.
Right.
So for me to call it just a Korean period drama, I think would be selling it short.
Before we continue, am I the only one here who is not super crazy about Parasite?
I liked
Yeah, I think
it.
so. I think so.
It was.
You can leave the room now,
I'm
Afrim.
not
See you later.
I'm not super crazy about it.
Camera off.
This will be a black
I don't know,
square
like,
now.
I just I think it's like well made, but I don't know, something about the story about it. I like was not rooting for that family at all, like ever. Like I kind of hated them.
I think that was the point, though. That's what Korean films do. Like, sometimes you actually don't know who you're rooting for, and you end up starting to hate the characters that at the start you're supposed to like. Because what was the Japanese selection last year, Alfred, that we watched, where the director came out and he was like, I wanted to pit you against every character. I didn't want you to fall in love with any of them. I wanted you to leave and make your decision at the last scene, because it was like an apocalyptic.
It was Korean. It was Concrete Utopia.
Concrete Utopia. Yeah, Concrete
Yeah,
Utopia is
which is
similar
also
to that.
crazy.
Yeah, where, you know, directors and writers will outright come out and say, like, we want you to decide, like, who you love and hate, but we want to pull and turn you throughout the film until you can make that decision in the end. They don't want to make it easy for you,
Yeah,
Alfred. I'm
I mean,
sorry.
I know. I don't know. In that one, I was just like, I kind of feel bad for the rich family. It's like they're just being like duped constantly, and I know I'm supposed to like hate them because they have money, but like they're really nice and the other poor family's really mean. I'm like, all right,
It's all right,
all right,
Afro.
we'll stay on 2024 for a while.
Okay,
So
so
before Marissa goes, we do have Carlos top five. So
oh yeah,
Oh yes,
give
yes,
Carlos.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, give Carlos.
So Carlos number 5 is Saturday Night.
Oh,
Very
I
good.
wanna see
That's
that.
very good.
I want to see that. I remember he really liked
Yeah,
that at TIFF. Yeah.
He was going crazy
full
for it.
caveat though, Carlo is like SNL crazy. So I would have expected him. I would hope that he would like it, because if he didn't like it, then it's why even bother. Afrim, I forgot. Did you see Saturday Night?
No, but Carlos specifically told me. He said, "These are his words. I loved it. I don't think you'll like it." Because he was, and I was like, all right, I think he understands me pretty well.
I really enjoyed it. I think it was pretty iconic of that time frame, and just really cool to see how SNL became what it is today. It's like kind of just a refresh on history, and like understanding that it was really nothing. It was like something they had to pull together, and it's shocking that it is what it is today and still exists. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, 50th anniversary, I think, is this year.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a nicely timed release, right? But maybe just
Yeah.
just to review kind of what it's about. It basically follows that first cast for like an hour and a half before showtime, like the first Saturday Night Live episode. So it's kind of cool seeing actors playing younger versions of like John Belushi, Chevy Chase, and for if you grew up watching them, seeing them try and embody it is pretty cool. Is pretty cool. I don't know if Lorne Michaels actually looked like that when he was younger, but the actor that they chose for that was very good as well.
Before we continue, I wanted to make a quick note that, by the way, with all the tangents, this is going to be like a 4-hour episode, guys. So take your bathroom breaks now and come back.
Every time I get in my top
But
10, everybody's like, wait, hold on a second.
I was going to say, regarding I saw the TV glow, I remember lining up on a really cold morning in Utah trying to watch that film, and my press badge wasn't even good enough to get in there at that time because it was
Really?
so packed. Yeah, there was so that was probably I think that one, and what was the Love one, the one with Ed Harris?
Oh,
And,
Love Lies
Love
Bleeding.
Lies
Oh my
Bleeding.
God. I love, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's
That,
good.
I
Yeah.
think that one too. Those were like the two big ones of Sundance that like everyone was trying to get into. So I actually had to like watch a couple of these other movies that are on my list are actually, well, one of them is actually, and Thelma was too, was actually like an audible I had to call because I couldn't get into that like way more popular film that was like sold out or like packed. But yeah, I saw the
All I
TV
can
glow
say
was
is
definitely
Love
a big
Lies
one.
Bleeding is not for your parents.
Yeah,
Love Lies,
no.
Not.
Love Lies Bleeding is in my list of favorite films of the year. I don't know if it's going to be in my top 10 or not, but I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, I was just watching it right before we started this call. Huh.
I
Literally, I was. It's on the TV on pause right now.
was actually about to rewatch my number one because it just got put on Netflix, thankfully. But I'm not going to spoil it yet.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, so before I jumped into my number 5, did you guys hear the news about Christopher Nolan's next film?
Oh God, we're gonna
What?
start a new tangent here.
Adaptation of Homer's Odyssey comes out July
Oh,
2020, 2026.
Yes.
Yeah.
2026, July 17, 2026, and it's being
What?
marketed as an action film.
Yeah.
Afrim.
What? Oh my God, this is like really good news.
Starring Tom Cruise. Afram's like, oh, what? Just kidding. Not
I'll
Tom
be
Cruise.
right back. I have
Not
to go
Tom
to the bathroom. But wait a minute. I will say though, I mean, we're on another tangent, but this is a film thing, so whatever. I feel like Nolan does better on like Jonathan Nolan scripts. You know what I mean? Like when it's something
Mhm.
based on like a pre-existing IP or some kind of pre-existing material or history of some kind, I feel like it doesn't suit him quite as well. You know what I mean? Like I like Oppenheimer a lot. You know, I like Dunkirk's all right. I think it's probably his worst movie, but even that one's like his worst movie's probably, you know,
Better than the
better than
one.
70% of them.
Better than
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
like Dunkirk to me was just okay. Oppenheimer was like better than that, but still not like on the level of like an Inception or Interstellar or something like that, you know,
I
or
think he just
Prestige or
likes
you know.
taking on challenging tasks. And so it's kind of like when somebody thinks that it can't be done, he jumps in and he's like, I'm going to do it. Because even,
It could
so
be done.
my,
Give it to somebody else.
well, my number five is Dune Part 2. Don't anybody dare call it a
Okay.
Oh,
sequel because that's what people have been calling it, I've realized. I'm like, huh? What?
Denis
Um,
Villeneuve will say
Denis
no.
Villeneuve would be very upset. But I think just watching the original Dune and seeing how far they've come is just crazy to me. Just because sci-fi is just really a hard just niche in general to make content on, and of course he's shooting it for an IMAX screen because why not? I mean, all of us have access to one of those cameras, right? Wouldn't that be amazing? What is it,
Yeah.
six? It takes
Yeah.
6 men to like drag that thing around.
Yeah.
Afrim had one at TIFF.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it's right
Afrim. Yeah,
there.
you
It's
just
behind
lug that around. Can only
Oh
watch our
man.
reviews on an
Yeah.
IMAX screen.
For
Afrim
those who have no
at
idea what the hell we're
Sundance.
talking about. What?
Afrim at Sundance, when you saw Jonathan Nolan, did you tell him that his brother's movies are better when they use his script?
I dared not because he was actually a lot bigger in person than I thought. But it was actually really cool, like getting to hear him talk for about an hour. He was actually setting up Fallout, the really good TV show, because I guess he's a producer and I think he might have directed the first episode. I'm not sure,
Oh.
but yeah, he was there to talk about that, and he was talking about. He actually did say though. He said, "I'll write an amazing script. I'll give it to my brother. He'll make all these changes, and then I look at them, and the changes suck." And then I quietly put him back to what I had him on, and like, all right, here's the shooting script. Let's go. He goes, my brother, he's a director.
So now that Marissa brought up Christopher Nolan, I kind of have to mention this because it's trending in the sense that people are very upset that Interstellar is ranked as one of the lowest rated Nolan films on
Is
Rotten
it
Tomatoes.
73%?
That's a lie.
73%. Second to last, Tenet is
The
69%.
Prestige
But
is tied, right, with
yeah,
it.
Prestige is also very good. But the next cast for this Odyssey movie is going to have Matt Damon and Anne Hathaway from Interstellar, as well as Robert Pattinson from Tenet, among, of course, Spider-Man, the girl
Zendaya.
from Challengers, and the voice of the wild robot.
Just subtle names
Wow.
here and there,
Yeah.
just to name a few.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That kind of reminds me of an Oppenheimer. Like I think I wrote this in my review where it was like every new scene that started, you're like, oh, I didn't know that person was in this movie. Like every new scene had some other famous actor. You're like, damn, how many people are in this freaking film? You know? Yeah, I
All
guess he
right.
commands that kind of respect now. All right,
Well,
let's keep going. We're
I don't
kind of
want to
getting
I
off.
don't want to go too much into Doom Part 2 just because I feel like if somebody hasn't seen Part 1, I don't want to give too much away, but I just think it was altogether very well done. I actually know how to do the sand worm move on the sand. Be sure to check out my video on my other YouTube
Oh, I
channel
saw
if you
that.
want to.
You were with Macho Man Randy Savage.
Yeah. Who better to learn with than Macho Man Randy? Oh my gosh, I forgot. Yeah, we were doing it with some Slim Jims. So if you want to avoid the sandworms, learn from the best. We were great at it. All right, so Alfred, we'll start with you and Carlo's number 4 and jump right into
So
it.
maybe let's get Karlo's number 4. So Karlo's number 4 is a movie called Friendship, which I
Oh, yeah,
believe
yeah,
it
yeah.
was that I think it was at TIFF that he saw that.
Friendship, I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
It's
he
the one
kept
with
telling
Paul
me to
Rudd.
see it. He goes, "You would love it." Yeah. And I think Tim
Yeah,
Robinson, right?
yeah. Tim Robinson, Paul Rudd, Kate Mara, and yeah, those are the big three for that. But it's an A24 movie, so I mean the qualities you can kind of imagine already is going to be pretty
A24 is
good.
killing it, man. Every film, it's got A24
I
slapped
feel
on it.
I feel like whomever's making the choices at A24 like left HBO and went there because like HBO like in the mid two like early to like in the 20s to 2010s was just like banger after banger like nonstop, and now this is like what A24 is basically doing.
Creme de la creme.
So that's Carlo's number four. My number four, I haven't seen it, so I can't really opine very much on it. But my number four is one that Afrim already mentioned, which is Emilia Perez. And I think if you've watched Narcos or Narcos Mexico,
My number
you
4 is
kind of
Amelia
have.
Perez too, so I guess I'm just gonna jump on this
Ding
with
ding ding
you.
ding 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 ding
Oh
ding.
boy.
Ah! I was like, did you look at my
We have a
notes?
winner.
I don't think so. But Emilia Perez. So if if you grew up watching, Scarface, anything kind of like Narco, right? Like Narco film, Narco TV, Narcos Mexico. You have this kind of, you get these villains that it's like the big bad drug dealer, commands an army of people with the weapons that come from God knows where, but it's a detail we don't have to worry about because it's a movie. Emilia Perez is interesting because I don't think I'm spoiling it, right? But it basically centers around a drug dealer that basically wants a sex change, right? And the fascinating thing for me, for Emilia Perez, is a lot of LGBTQ kind of films, a lot of films and documentaries that like to tackle the idea of what happens when someone undergoes a sex change. It tends to focus on the process, like, oh, look, this is before. Oh, look, this is after. And the interesting thing about Emilia Perez is it kind of assumes you already know how that is, and the movie focuses more on the person, on Emilia Perez as a person. And that to me was refreshing because it's like, okay, we can actually focus now on this story, and it's a beautifully told story, beautifully choreographed story. I mean, it has to be, because if you looked at the production credits, it's Anthony Vaccarello from Yves Saint Laurent, and you're like, okay, well, I can see why they want dance numbers in there because they need people to move to show off the clothes. But musical aside, I thought it was a very good story, very well done, very well acted by the
Carla
actress that
Sofia
plays
Gascon.
Carla Sofia.
Is she?
And
She
Zoe
made the
was
short
amazing.
list as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what's interesting too? I always feel like when you're playing kind of two different characters, can you potentially get two different nominations then in that case? Because it's kind of crazy. I mean, I would never be able to look at both characters and be like, whoa, this is the same person. That's how amazingly well they did with like the makeup and everything to kind of just like change her entire or their entire identity, essentially. It's kind of crazy.
If you ask Jim Carrey from Sonic 3, he'd tell you that he should be eligible for 2.
I think she should go with, she should definitely go with the Jim Carrey effect and be like, I should have got paid twice for this role. 2 for 1. And Zoe Saldana, like, I forget, honestly, like, she speaks Spanish fluently. So it's kind of crazy to see her. You're just like, wait a second, Avatar? Wait, she was Colombiana as well.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Was she Gamora?
Yeah.
She was Gamora.
Yeah.
She was also part of like this ballerina movie that I was obsessed with called Center Stage back in the 90s. And
That was her breakthrough.
yeah, that was her breakthrough. That was her breakthrough, and that's how she's made her way.
Well, can I just make one point about Emilia Perez since we're talking about this film, and why I think I had it a little like one spot below you guys. The whole time I was watching it, well, first off, I remember I was kind of interested in where the story was going, and then now since we've already discussed it, he wants to have a sex change operation, and then all of a sudden I was like, I was like, oh, I didn't think this was where the movie was going. You know, I had no idea. And then, like Alfred said, it was good that they didn't really, that wasn't the focus. Like it was just
Mm-hmm.
like here he is in one scene, now here she is in the next scene, and then like how they try to change their life from what they used to be to now. But the thing that kind of held it back for me was like I just kept remembering like what kind of person he was before. And I was like, I'm supposed to feel bad for like a cartel head who probably had
Mm-hmm.
people, killed and disappeared and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, I know he's like now she like trying to do different things now, but like
Yeah.
I don't know, that
I
lingering
think
fact
I
kept like
think it
kind of
was
hanging in my
this.
head.
I think it was like a symbolization of like if you had a second chance as a different, complete person, like would you be the same person or would you completely change everything about you? And I feel like that was kind of the moral of the story is like this is like not the same person at all, where they have completely changed over, they've wanted to restructure their life. But then also you realize, can you really do that? Like, do you get a second chance in that way? Or will you always be that person no matter how many things that you do to yourself to change it? Like, is that going to do and make the difference? So, yeah, I think.
Yeah, I think you're kind of destined to be who you're going to be. You know what I mean? Like I think that's kind of one of the
So you don't believe
themes
in
of
a
the film.
redemption arc, Afrim?
I mean, I don't want to go through the list of things he did as a piece of crap. Like he like abandoned his family. Like I mean, there's a lot more. So I was
Listen,
like,
Selena Gomez
this
would be
isn't
just
this isn't
okay
Evita
if the
over
film went
here.
alone.
Avita with Madonna. Are you gonna start singing?
Yeah, yeah, like don't cry for me, Mexico City. I was like, I'm not. Sorry. Let's keep going.
All right, Steve. What's your number four, Steve?
Okay, so number four is one thing that's interesting about my top five, and I didn't realize it when I picked these, and I'm looking at them now and I'm thinking, okay, these all represent different subgenres of horror slash thrillers, and I just think that's kind of interesting. It's kind of like the nunsploitation thing. Here we are. So, anyways, the number four would be this small film called Late Night with the Devil, and this is sort of a found footage type of film, but it's not a found footage film. It's not shaky cam or anything. But what it does is, in a way, it's similar to the Saturday Night Live film, where it takes place all in the course of filming a TV episode. In this case, it's a also 70s, late night talk show host, sort of like Johnny Carson or something of that era. And so it's their Halloween episode, and the host, who has sort of his own troubled backstory, is having on as one of his guests is going to be this woman who is I can't remember if she's an author, if she's written a book about this girl who apparently has a demon inside of her, and so she's possessed. And so this woman who is the caretaker of her can bring this out and try to help her through this demonic possession. And so the whole conceit of this is we're watching this live, and there's a skeptic included in there who is very obviously tailored after the amazing Randy, who had this lifelong $1 million check he would give out to anybody who could prove anything supernatural or whatever. And so this guy is on there, and he's offering the point of view of skepticism, like none of this is real, this is all fake. And then the possessed girl is there doing her bit, and it's all coming out. And meanwhile, the host is trying to. This is David Dalsmalkian, who is really kind of making. He's having a moment these last couple of years in movies, and so he's trying to hold this all together. But the film does a really good job of showing the actual, like, real time. This is what the audience is seeing, and then they would cut away while they went to a commercial and kind of show, and they would switch to a black and white view, so you can kind of get the distinction. Like, okay, now it's got an actual camera. We're watching the crew and what's going on backstage, and so you've got sort of two stories happening here at once. And then the film just goes completely batshit crazy at the end, and the last 20 minutes is just, it's magical. I loved it. But it's a very
evil
fun
laugh.
film. It's fun, it's crazy, and I enjoyed it immensely. I think I've seen it twice now.
Ah, very
So
nice.
that was
can I?
late night with
Sorry,
Apple.
I'm a little lost on like the. Can you just quickly go over some of like the subgenres of horror? Because when I always think of it, I always just think of like horror and then that's it. And I know I'm
Oh,
totally lost
geez.
on this, but
Well, so it's sort of like
like,
metal. Metal has like all different types of metal. It's the same with horror, and horror and metal are very quite adjacent as it is. But yeah, you've got like, okay, so one of my favorite is found footage films, and this would be like kind of popularized by the Blair Witch Project, which was shaky cam, and some people have found, oh, this is essentially they're finding footage and they're making this movie out for you to see. That, by the way, the first found footage film was probably Cannibal Holocaust, where the crew literally goes and finds the footage. But
Actually
oh
saw
wow.
that one.
gosh, subgenres. You've got zombies, you've got vampires, you have werewolves, you've got.
Maybe we'll have to save this one for another
Oh
because
God, it
I
could
can
go
listen to
on and
that
on.
like
Well,
all day. Because
like
I'm really interested.
yeah, well, like I saw the TV Glow. That's why it sort of gets lumped in with horror, even though it's not really a horror film per se. And people are always arguing about that. But I would call that more of like experimental horror, or even there's a new kind of subgenre called liminal horror, which was kind of made popular by a movie called Skinamarink last year, which is these movies that are shot basically without a plot. It's just like experimenting to see how we can kind of freak out an audience. And I actually
Reality
like it.
TV horror.
It's kind of cool. But anyways, I don't want to take up time on all of that. I'll let
We'll
somebody
get to all that
else.
stuff on another one.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just want to mention to Afrim, Steve mentioned Cannibal Holocaust, and I'm pretty sure, is that not the movie where the person is kind of impaled through like the wooden pole?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's a whole backstory to that too. The director of that film, Diagato, was brought up on charges for that because because when he made this film, he wanted to be as real as possible. And after it was done, he sent his actors away. They had to sign a contract that they wouldn't, do media presentations, and so nobody knew who they were, where they were. And yeah, the Italian courts like brought him in and demanded that he produce these actors because there were people who thought this was real, and they had to show up and say, "Hey, we're here." And he had to show how he actually did that effect in particular because it was so real. And to this day, to me that's the most disturbing movie ever made, and that was 1978.
Wow.
By the
Is
way,
that your
thanks for
horror
spoiling
labs?
it. I wanted to go in fresh.
Steve's about to do an essay on it.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop.
All right, Afram,
Oh,
your
man.
last. What's number 4?
All right. So my number 4 is, I'm sure, something that's higher up on Alfred's list, which is a little film I like to call Conclave. So
I have seen
yes.
it.
Sorry, Alfred. I know you like it more than I do, but it is very good. I watched it recently, and I just really like the fact that it's a little bit of kind of like a mystery or thriller. I don't know how exactly
It
you would.
reminds
It's like
me
a political
Clue.
thriller.
Like Clue? I kind of felt like it was a game of
Mhm.
Clue, but weird, mixed with religion.
Yeah, I was literally watching it with my wife, and I kept asking her, like, what do you think's really happening here? Because I couldn't figure out, like, I was like, do you think he's lying? Do you think he's lying? I kept like saying, so they did a pretty good job of kind of like keeping this political intrigue going. And the thing that I really, really, I mean, the actors were all phenomenal, but the thing that I really, really appreciated was I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older or maybe I'm just becoming the like crotchety old man who yells at the sky, but I don't
You've
like
been
that
crotchety.
every film. Yeah, I am crotchety. Every film, I feel like every film that comes out now, like a shot does not stay on screen for more than like 2.4 seconds before they cut to something else. It's like I'm not a goldfish. Like you can leave them on the screen for a while. I will not turn away or look at my phone. Like I'm not stupid. I know maybe other people are, but I'm not. Please stop cutting in like constantly in a film. And this movie would actually like you're sitting on a shot for like 15, 20 seconds at a time. And I'm like, oh wow, we're just watching people talk and it's interesting. They don't have to keep making it all crazy now. And it's like, that's one thing I'm very thankful for in that film.
Yeah. Well, since this is my number 3, I guess I will continue to discuss it since we didn't really give too much of a backstory, but it's essentially kind of educational because I really actually didn't know what happens when a pope passes, what the process is, what exactly happens. So it's kind of cool to actually see. What was that, Steve?
The passing of the Pope, yeah.
The passing of the Pope, yeah. Like, I actually had no idea what the process is, and all of the, different cardinals are summoned to the Vatican, and they have to come, and basically they shut them off to the world. And I think they did such a good job with the cinematography and really, like, making you feel isolated in a setting of, like, wow, like, you're stuck here with all of these, cardinals who are fighting to basically become the next pope. And it's kind of crazy to see the hoops that people will go through in order to get voted for, and like how those votes change. It's like insane. Like you think who's going to win, and then the next day it's like, what the heck just happened here? Like I thought everybody was going for this guy. And they're unraveling information as this voting process goes on too. And it was really cool to see Isabella Rossellini as well be Sister Agnes, and kind of to see, like, I hate to say it, Steve, but the nuns are in this as well. There are nuns. It's just not nunsploited. But just kind of to see the different dynamics between the nuns and the cardinals and the different positions and like what they should focus on. And Isabella Rossellini really just kind of keeps her head down and like does what she's supposed to do until a moment happens where she needs to kind of step out of those like boundaries that have been created for her and do something that's going to make a difference in a part of the scene. So I just think it was educational but not boring. And sometimes when I think of films that are about religion, I just am just thinking to myself, do I really want to see this?
I just saw this movie 2 nights ago. I thought I should watch Conclave. Everybody's talking about it, and it's not really my kind of movie. It's not something I would normally seek out, but I was curious to see it, and it is kind of fun watching all these cardinals because they're also bitchy at each other.
Yeah. All this, I was literally going to say they were like high school
Stanley
kids,
Tucci.
It all goes,
I mean, Stanley Tucci from like Devil Wears Prada. Of course he's going to be dramatic.
That was crazy to see that. But it also, it begs the question, this is kind of a larger question, is like a movie like that, to me, doesn't need to be seen in a movie theater. And I don't know if you would agree with that or not, but it just seems like some films are just made for streaming. And so I'm glad I didn't see this at TIFF, because I'm perfectly fine watching this at home and pausing so I could pee and whatever, And it just doesn't, it seems like there's just kind of 2 types of movies, and this was that type to me. It was a good movie, I enjoyed it, I would never watch it again.
I agree. I agree with what you were saying about films nowadays being either like see this at the theater or like this is definitely like a streaming kind of film. And it's weird because would you equate now, because we really don't have any other option. We used to have like straight to video films back then, and those were usually like crap. You know what I mean? Like they were like B or lower. And now like there can be films that are like straight to streaming that are like incredible. You know what I mean? Like that have only been on streaming platforms. So it's kind of weird. You can't differentiate.
Well, where we have that straight to video now would be like Tubi. Tubi will take like any kind of bottom level crap possible to put it on.
Tubi's the catcher, just getting thrown films. Like
you can literally make a movie with your phone, and they'll be like, "Yeah, we'll take it. Come on over here. We'll put it on our platform."
Because as long as you have a Tubi TV, right, you get any of their films for free off of your remote.
No, it's just a
right?
well, it's a free streaming service.
Yeah, I think it's just an app. Yeah, you could just download it on any TV and like make an account. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean to.
Or
to
what
Steve's
was
point
your
about it-
Pluto is Afrim? Sorry, had to just throw that out there. Were you on? Did I have to sign up for Pluto for you, Afrim? Jesus.
Oh my God, it might have been
No,
for
no.
the Lifetime
I
thing.
think it
Yeah.
was
Yes.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
How dare you make me sign up
do
for
not
Pluto.
Look that up.
Afrim was on reality TV show, Steve. Look it up. Download Pluto and watch him. You're going to love every moment of
one
this show.
episode.
Watch that
One
one together.
episode.
One episode will be worth every
Actually, I
second,
wouldn't
Steve.
mind. I wouldn't mind doing like a Shade Studios kind of like watch session. Watch it again because it was
Reaction?
kind of ridiculous.
That would be amazing reaction videos. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Steve,
All
to
right,
your
sorry.
point
All right,
on,
let's keep going.
on Conclave, right? To his point on Conclave, how he doesn't think he had to be in a theater to watch it. It's interesting you mentioned that because the director for Conclave, his last movie was All Quiet on the Western Front, which I believe premiered on Netflix. So it's now it's like, okay, let's give him a shot in the theater at a film festival. And I agree with you. I mean, I liked it in the theater because the music is really tense, and depending on what setup you get at home, it may not have the same impact. But yeah, I can see why streaming would be comfortable for you, especially you,
Yeah,
Steve.
I mean,
there's not enough gore in this.
Well, there's nothing. I don't think there's anything new about this concept. It's just that we have that ability now. Like My Dinner with Andre. I mean, I love this movie, but I can't imagine seeing that at a theater. At the time when that came out, I guess that was your only option. It might have been, you'd have to wait for it to come out on VHS at some point. But
Ugh.
I guess you would just wait.
Please be kind. Rewind days. Oh.
Yeah. Blockbuster. I mean, it doesn't help that literally every new movie on average seems to be 2 hours and 19 minutes long. And it's like, I don't want to sit in a theater.
I have a beef with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like a lot of the better movies lately have been like way longer than they used to be. And it's like, I have to literally plan out when the last time I drink before I go to the theater is. I have like a whole protocol now so that I don't like,
Do you know
have to
there's
use
an
the bathroom in the middle of the movie.
There's an app. There's a app. It's called Can I Pee or something like that. Or When Can I forget what the app is called. I had it for a while. And it tells you. It tells you like the moments in the movie when it's safe to go out and you won't miss much.
Oh
like,
my
You're not
God.
gonna
Where did
miss
you
any
find
important
this,
plot
Steve?
points.
Like, how did you stumble upon a Where to Pee app? I have to know this. What?
But it's like pretty up to date. It's like, I guess it's like even new films that just come out, people will add their opinion like, oh, it's okay.
It's like Waze.
30 yeah, they're like, go at the 37-minute mark right after this moment happens, go, you'll be fine, you're not going to miss anything.
Yeah, but how would they know if they left to go pee?
It's called the Run Pee app. It's literally called Run Pee.
Run Pee. That's
It exists to improve your movie-going
What a world.
experience.
I love it.
I thought that was an Indian dating app.
Hashtag we are not sponsored by Run Pee, but Run Pee, if you'd like to sponsor our channel, that would be amazing.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. But
Actually, it'd be cool. It'd be cool if it's synced up with the film and it gave you like an alert on your phone, like, "Hey, if you have to pee, go now."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a free app, too. You
I
don't have to pay.
Yo, I 100% could have used Run Pee for Killers of the Flower Moon. That one was a hard one because it was a great movie, but like I didn't time my drinking properly, and like an hour and 40 into it, I was like, all right, I kind of have to go, but I didn't want to miss any plot points. Yeah.
There's a whole Reddit thread, by the way, on this Run Pee app, and it's really funny.
Really? Of course.
And
Oh my
somebody's
God.
asking for a puppy pee timer.
Oh my God.
Random.
We are off the rails officially. Merry Christmas, everybody.
What number are we at?
We're on number 3,
Yeah.
and I just did mine because
Yeah.
Afrim
Three.
was the last to do 4, and it was Conclave. Mine was Conclave. So, who wants to give their number 3?
We're gonna have
Maybe I'll do my number 3
Chocolate
because you already
movies.
mentioned what my number 3 is, which is Dune Part 2.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, we watch a lot of movies in a year, and you know, there are the indie darlings, the ones that the critics like, but you know, there's a part of me that's just like, what movies just grab at you and you need to go out and see them in a theater, and Dune Part 2 is absolutely on that list, as well as, you know, the recent 10-year re-release of Interstellar. Right, like
Oh
these are
yeah.
the types of movies where, you know, maybe you'll find plot holes, maybe the arcs don't match up, maybe you don't like whatever it is that you like to nitpick about watching movies. The fact that it can get you out in 2024 off your couch into a theater, and it is just a glorious experience, whether you understand who the Freemen are, what they do. I mean, just sitting there and watching it, I mean, I think there's something to say for that. So Dune Part 2 is number 3 for me.
Do you know the sandworm move? Clearly, you haven't watched enough. Get out of here.
Yeah, and I can't do the walk. So
I have that walk memorized, unfortunately. I can't get it out of my legs. It's just like there, muscle memory. I'll teach the whole team. We're going to do it in the snow at Sundance this year. We're going to do the warm walk in the snow. It's going to happen.
Well, who were the creatures? Who were the ones in Star Wars that they were like? Was it the Jawa? No, not the Jawas. It was somebody who like they all walk in one path, so they only have like one set of footprints. So you never know like how many of them there are. I feel like I'm just gonna follow your.
You know what it
I
reminds
don't know
me
if it was
too,
the
actually.
Jawas or whoever
Did you
it
ever
was,
see
but
Tremors, Steve? That was like one of my favorite
sure.
horror films when I was a
Yeah.
kid. Was
That's a
Tremors. We used to
great movie,
we used to
great movie.
pretend in my living room that they were inside of our home, and we jump and break everything in the house to not touch the ground.
Like the floor
Good
is
time.
lava, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, floor is lava. So wait, did we get Carlo's number 3 yet? No,
Oh yeah,
right?
what's Carlo's?
Oh, okay. So Carlo's number 3 is Wild Robot.
Yeah, my
Ooh,
honorable
okay.
mention.
It's a really
Wow,
good
Karlo
movie.
must have shed some tears.
Yeah, I think it really hit home with him.
We need to get him a robot
Yeah.
for our for Christmas. Is that what he needs?
Make sure it's wild.
Yeah. You know, Wild Robot was just, gosh, that trailer. I'm never
So
gonna
bad.
forget it, because I'm just like, I don't want to see this crap. Like, just fast forward to the next trailer. I've seen this trailer like 60 times, and then you watch the movie and you're like, oh man, who messed that up?
Somebody has to get fired for this.
Yeah, I didn't get that storyline at all in the trailer. Like, I literally just saw
At
a
all.
freaking robot like filming animals, and that was kind of what I got from the trailer.
And, you know,
Yeah.
the trailers.
It was like How to
somebody's
Train Your
gotta-
Robot.
Somebody's got to reel in this whole trailer industry. It's really getting crazy, and you know, I know a lot of people who just shut them off. They will not watch trailers at all because the worst is the ones that just completely go through the entire movie and basically show it
Every
to you
part.
in
Mhm.
in 2 movies. And I guess these trailers are made by outside companies. You know, they're not really affiliated with the movie crews and the
Mhm.
people who make these movies, and so. You know, it's like a marketing firm putting these things together, but it's real frustrating. And, you know, that's my biggest pet peeve of movies is got to be
Trailers.
trailers.
Yeah. Well, and
A24 does a great job. A24.
yeah, with trailers. Well, what happened to our
Brilliant
movie
trailers.
guy voice? The guy who's like on every movie. Hello.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
In a
I think that was
world.
Don LaFontaine.
yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I think it was oh my god, he used to narrate a show. Was it Ripley's Believe It or Not on Fox, or it might have been the Beyond Belief Fact or Fiction with Jonathan Frakes. You remember where he used to tell those? Now they have memes about it all over, where it's
Yeah,
like
I know, there
that
is.
last one was a lie. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So I think it was that show. I forget, but at the end, I remember because Don LaFontaine was the guy doing the voiceover for the show, and then at the end of it, he'd go, "I'm Don LaFontaine," you know, like he'd always throw that in at the last second, and that's how I remembered his name. Yeah, unfortunately, he passed away. The movie trailer guy.
Oh man, he was
Yeah.
he was good. He's a good one. We could use him back on the Wild Robot. Maybe he
But
could have told us
I
the
agree.
true story.
I 100% agree with Steve there's the trailer thing now is like twofold. One, I think it's actually irony, right? Like real irony that like in trying to make something that is trying to get eyeballs, they've like overdone it so badly that they're doing the exact opposite, like they're having the exact opposite effect. But then
Hmm.
like also a lot of these new trailers, I'm literally watching them and I'll like look over to whomever I'm with and be like, I basically saw the whole movie.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like
Oh
It's so
yeah.
lazy.
why do I
It's
have to
so
go see
lazy.
this?
Hmm. They
Yeah,
pick the best
yeah, it's
parts,
like
and then you finish the film, and you're like, "Wow, the trailer was the best portion of the film."
yeah, I saw the best parts.
Like,
Absolutely.
this is
And
lame.
and here's my little pet peeve too nowadays that people seem to like not notice, but it bothers me every single time. Like every trailer has a trailer. Like it'll be
Oh
like
yeah,
the new Wild Robot trailer starts now, you know?
yeah.
It's like it's like a 5 second trailer for the
For the
trailer. It's like,
trailer.
bro, you already have my attention. I'm watching the screen
Well,
already. You
that's
don't
that.
have to
That's
tell
I,
me.
that's
I
the
I have an
algorithm. That's
idea.
all algorithm based. You got to
We should
capture
put
Yeah,
that.
Nicole.
that's
We
like
should
a
put
sign of
Nicole
the times.
Kidman. Put Nicole Kidman in front of every trailer. Make us see her in
Oh
front of
my
every
god.
trailer.
Marissa just steered my thought into something else. So she mentioned Nicole Kidman, but what I really want to ask Afram is, well, what if Nicolas Cage voiced over the Wild Robot trailer? Would that entice you more?
Give us your best voice, Afram. Give us your best
Like,
Cage.
well, in a world, all right, where there's a robot gets dropped down, okay, from like a spaceship or something, I'm not sure, and it doesn't know how to treat the animals, okay? So now he's like recording them. It's like he's like the animal's mother or something. I think
Must
I'd watch
Oh
watch.
that
my
100%.
gosh. And like with your family, Afram, I don't know how many animated films you've seen. I feel like this year's been really rough with animation. I think we're seeing a lot of like franchises coming back with additional prequels, sequels. It's been rough. I mean, I think Inside Out 2 was actually better than its predecessor this year, but other than that,
I think that's the only one.
I don't have any like Despicable Me 4 was like ugh, not that great.
Wasn't there a Kung Fu Panda 4 too that was kind of
Kung Fu
garbage?
Panda 4, they brought Aquafina on board for that, and that too was just like an
Ugh.
overextension of Poe basically going into retirement essentially. So I think these franchises are trying to squeeze it out like a lemon to just keep going and keep making money, but the storylines are just very dry.
Well,
Was there a
you
Shrek
know what
4
we're
this
gonna
year or
need.
no?
Sorry, what was that, Steve?
You know what we're gonna need is a Conclave franchise now. So it's gonna be like Conclave 2, The Revenge. And at some point, there's got to be Conclave in space.
Tremblay's Revenge.
Conclave
I
versus
want to see
Empire.
Stanley Tucci come out with like a fashion show with the Cardinals, and it's like a whole runway show, and they're all wearing Prada.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's like a West Side Story, but there's like the nuns and the cardinals.
Oh my God,
Oh my
Oh my
gosh,
god.
I'm dying.
All
All
right.
right,
So
who
Carlo, look
hasn't
what you did. Your number
who
three
hasn't done
movie.
three? I'm
yeah. I
like,
haven't done a 3.
okay, Steve, what's your
I
number
haven't, and
three?
Steve hasn't.
My 3 is The Substance, Demi Moore. And
Ah,
that's
I knew
also
that was
The
going to land high
Substance.
for you.
Oh,
I
that's
haven't seen it
low
yet.
for you, Steve.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be at
But
least your
it
number
was, it
two,
was
Steve.
it was number 1 for a long time, but I had to give
Ah,
it some deep thought. But no, it's really weird when you rank movies like this because really the top 3, it's like they're all good. How do I pick one or the other?
Hmm.
But the Substance to me was so good, and here we go. This is kind of a return to body horror film, and I love Demi Moore's performance in it is like so vulnerable. She just puts herself out there. I'm glad to see that she's nominated for Golden Globes. She deserves it, and um, the director has created. This is her second film. She did one called Revenge a few years ago that I really loved. This kind of like hyper realistic kind of movies that exist in this strange world, and the Substance tells the story of an aging actress who is sort of like doing this fitness show now, who is abruptly considered too old to be doing that line of work. And so she gets this mysterious substance that allows her to clone herself into a much younger and more beautiful version of herself. Now you could be your best self, or something like that.
Is the substance? Is it like a liquid? Is it a pill? Like what?
Well, it's
exactly
a whole series of injections.
Oh, they're injections. Okay.
Yeah, and so the clone like literally comes out of her own body. And what's good about this movie is not just that it's, sure, it's a reflection on beauty standards and how we kind of, especially for women, we kind of tend to want to discard them after the age of, well, even 40 or older. You're too old to be able to do any of this stuff. And sure, it touched on that, but it also kind of touched on a much more internalized version of that among women. And so like Demi Moore and her younger version of herself was actually kind of like her own worst enemy, trying to determine which one really. And so Demi Moore her character was never really learning. She wasn't getting any better because she had this younger version of herself. If anything, she was just becoming more and more isolated. But the movie is just goofy and fun. And this is one of those movies where the last 15 minutes is either you're going to love it or it's going to just send you out of the theater or your living room, I guess, and just be like, this is just too much. I saw it at TIFF, and there were people leaving the movie just because of the amount of blood.
Wow. And how far in were they starting to leave the theater, Steve? Was it like halfway?
They were leaving early. They were leaving pretty early with it because there was a lot of close-up needle injection shots, which is like a real trigger point for a lot of people. And then just the transformation, the body horror parts of it was really well done. And it harkened back to some of David Cronenberg's best films from, Videodrome and Dead Ringers and some of these other movies. So it was a good return to that kind of horror, although it's not a scary movie by any means. It's more satire, I think, than anything. Just really well done. I really love The Substance.
I just need to read my favorite text message from Steve Ramsey this year, which was before TIFF actually started. It's related to The Substance. It's okay. And, quote, "Holy fuck, The Substance is absolutely bonkers. Nothing will top the over-the-top insanity of this movie. I might as well go home now."
That's a great movie quote, actually. I hope that we can maybe get that in a trailer at some point, Steve. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's good. But you know what it is it's for me, as somebody who watches a lot of genre films, this is like the kind of movies that I'm always looking for. Something that is just really going to do something bigger and just kind of be bold, because there's a lot of movies being made that I forget them.
What niche, I guess, in horror would you put this in then, Steve?
Body horror.
There you go, Afrim, a new one, body horror.
Yeah.
You got that?
I was like, all right, here's number 3. Because I think you said in the beginning, didn't you, that like your top 5 were like 5 different types of horror?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm keeping track.
Body horror. You know what? And what's crazy to me is Demi Moore, just how she stayed relevant through the different decades is crazy to me. I know, Afrim, like, you saw Bratz, right?
Yeah.
So I saw Bratz as well because I was like a huge fan of The Breakfast Club, Pretty in Pink growing up, and Demi Moore was a part of that documentary, and I think what I got from that documentary was that like this ruined all their careers and all this and that. And I look at it now, I'm like, Demi Moore is still kind of like in her prime in a weird way, and she's like killing it in so many different projects. So it's just like interesting to see that documentary released this year, kind of being like, oh, this kind of stifled everybody from the Brat Pack, but then you see Demi Moore coming out in this astonishing body horror film and just like continuing her career. How old is Demi Moore, actually?
Rob Lowe is still going. Emilio
Rob Lowe looks
Estevez, like,
sane.
yeah, yeah.
The
So
Mighty Ducks are still a
Demi
thing.
Moore
Like,
is
who knew?
62.
she's 62.
62. That's
Demi
crazy.
Moore looks great. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's perfect for that role in this because that's exactly what the movie is talking about. Is these aging actresses? Do we have any value for them any longer? And it's great because she shows, well, yeah, here I am. She literally bears everything in this movie.
Which I wondered too if she took on the role, Steve, because like she's at a point in her life as well where she's in her 60s, and it's
That's
still
what I mean,
the stigma,
yeah.
right? Like I wonder if she
Which
really
is actually kind of
took
funny
home.
because the character she plays is 50, I guess 50, 51 or something.
Ah,
And-
so like 10 years younger than she actually is in real life. That's
right.
that's saying a lot.
I mean, good for her. Yeah.
All right, Afram.
All right. Okay, so I'm not I'm not gonna pretend that I screwed up in my top five and literally right now replace my number three because I realized that the number three I had before came out 8 days before last year ended, and I thought it was a 2024 film, but it wasn't.
That's a football.
Which,
Marissa.
yeah, that was a mistake. See, originally I had on there the Iron Claw, and
Oh, I like
but
that
that which I loved a lot, but that came out, apparently it came out December 22nd of last year, so it was literally like just over a year ago. So
Yeah,
I did
have
replace
a rule
it though.
about that. I have a rule about that. That's perfectly legit to put into this year's.
I mean, the thing is, we don't get the other days, right? We don't have December's like 24th through 30th. So how come I can't? But I'd still be a day past anyway. But so it would have elapsed, as Alfred knows. So I wound up switching it out with Better Man,
Okay.
which it does have limited releases. I think Wednesday. I think Christmas Day, right? I think there's some
Christmas
limited
Day.
releases like in LA and New York.
Mhm.
I did enjoy. I mean, it is fair to say I did enjoy Better Man more than I did Conclave and Emilia Perez, so it does fit better in there. But I will say, I'm sure I'm gonna go over this other part later. I hope we have time. But there are probably other films on the list I wish I got to see that would probably remove like three of these movies. But anyway, so Better Man, I really enjoy it. I'm not a big fan of the trend of the biopic, but this kind of like the musical biopic, but this does something like pretty different. I mean, Marissa and I did a whole live about it. If you guys want to check that out, it was actually pretty damn good. I think it was like it's only 5 minutes long. Don't worry, just go watch it.
Our video.
But,
I'm pretty sure that was a 2-hour video, Afram, but okay.
Shh, don't tell them, otherwise they won't go. but basically, yeah. They did this really crazy thing where Robbie Williams. If you don't know what the film is about, Robbie Williams, the UK pop star, it's basically like a fictionalized biopic of his life, and he's portrayed by like a CGI monkey the entire time, which it's really weird, but you kind of forget about it like 10 minutes into the film. And although, like we said in the video, it is a little bit long for its own good, I rather enjoyed it. I thought it was one of the better films this year.
Nice. All right. Everybody's done their three. Now we're moving on to two. On that note,
We're getting there.
I need to change your number rating on that film now. We're gonna have to go and eraser that out, and I think reflect that it's number 2 on your list this year. Afrim is our hardest critic number 3. Yes, I'm like, we're on number 2, but for number 3, yes, Afrim is by far our hardest critic on the slab today. Everyone,
curve is real.
It really is.
I'm super harsh, and I think I've explained this like 1,000 times, but I might as well tell everybody. Like, I have this weird obsession with ranking every film against every other film that's ever existed. You know what I mean? Instead of
basically, Schindler's List is what your film will be compared to. Just throwing it out there for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's hard. I know it's a lot of stuff to like keep in here, but it's really weird because my brain doesn't work for anything else. Like if you ask me what I had for dinner 2 hours ago, I might not be able to tell you right off the bat. But if you say, "Hey, what did you give Better Man?" I'm like, I think I gave it a 6.5.
Oh, God.
I know what you
I
gave
don't
it
know.
even though.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. But
I love how
yeah,
this like 10 numbers isn't even enough. That you got to have the .5 in there. You're like,
yeah.
I gotta leave
Sometimes it's a feel thing. Sometimes I go into like point threes, man.
Afrim's over here like
Yeah, I noticed that.
6.302876.
I'm like the total opposite of Afrim. If there could be two complete opposites,
We have the
in our film
decimals
right
there,
here.
so Afrim can, when he's uncertain.
But I
he
love
doesn't
you. I
round
love
down.
you too, though. I love Steve Ramsey.
Oh, yeah, well,
All right,
I'm
so-
supposed to be in.
So number
Wait,
two,
so-
for me,
All right.
we already spoke about, because Alfred, I think this was on your honorable
Yeah.
mentions, but Anora as my number two.
Great film.
I just think Sean Baker, what he was able to do with directing and writing this, the writing was so well done. And the one-liners were so good, and it was so organic and natural, and how all of these different actors and actresses portray their characters. And the other thing that I loved about it is there weren't any really big names that were a part of this film. So like Mikey Madison, I had seen her in another TV show, which I realize I haven't even finished yet, Lady in the Lake with Natalie Portman. And she plays a very small role, but like she's this cute little Jewish girl. And then you see her in Anora, and she could not be farther from that role that she was cast for. So it was just really inspiring to see somebody go from just being smaller roles in films and TV series to this like lead character, and then honing in, not only having to speak English, or Runglish as they call it, where it's like half Russian, half English at the same time. And I think it's hard with subtitles sometimes when you're reading, it can take away from the film. But in this sense, I felt like it was satirical and just kind of funny throughout. And then a lot of the other supporting characters, I've never heard of them. I think they've only done, like, some of them were portraying Armenian characters, Russian characters, but like they've only primarily done like Russian films. And I think they just did such a spectacular job really integrating humor, seriousness, this really weird love story that doesn't necessarily, again, have like this happy Cinderella storyline. So that's why I'm like, why are people calling this a Cinderella story? Because it's not like that. There are pieces of Pretty Woman where it's very similar, where she like gets a day or a week rate that she offers, and she's like, oh, I want to make this much, and he's like, sold, I would have done it for this though. And that kind of reminded me of Richard Gere and Julia Roberts. But no, I just think that Sean Baker really killed it on this one. And even the way it was shot, it was very retro in feel. But I just loved that the entire time I was pretty much laughing, and at the end of the film I was repeating the one-liners that I had heard in the film itself too.
All right.
Who wants to go next? Highly recommend that film to you, Steve. Actually, I think you would like Anora if you haven't seen
love
it.
Sean Baker's
you both
films
would like it,
because
actually.
Florida Project.
Oh yeah, William Dafoe, right?
Ever. And Willem Dafoe is in it, yeah. And I've seen one of his other films too, but I don't remember what it was called. I'm blanking on it right now, but yeah, I love those movies. You're right. He has like these kind of unknown characters, although in Florida Project he had Willem Dafoe, but everybody else is just like, they seem like they're just like real people in these movies.
There's some realness when you don't know who the actor or actress is. I feel like you're not thinking about them in other roles. So it's like this weird psychology, right? Where, I guess when Mikey was with Natalie Portman, she's kind of outshined by Natalie Portman, and these other massively A-list team around her, where you don't see her for probably her ability of acting that she has. And then she's put in a role like this, and you're like, wow, this girl is a great sex worker. Like, man, she really nailed it.
Yeah.
Quote it.
That actually reminds me of. Do you guys remember that Nicholas? Speaking of Nicolas Cage, from before, do you remember that Nicolas Cage movie we saw at Montclair, Dream Scenario?
Oh yeah.
Oh
Oh yeah,
yes.
I've
Oh
seen that.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. So I remember because I think I wrote the review for that one up on shadestudios.com, shadestudios.com. But yeah, so I remember I remember I wrote in the review that even though like I love Nicolas Cage, for the most part it's just fun to watch him. But that was one of those cases where like I think the movie would have been better off if it was somebody I didn't know.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah,
You
Actually,
know,
that
I
would have
kind
been
of think you're right. It's a
interesting.
good point.
Because even Yvonne,
yeah,
who's like the main guy character, I have no clue like what he has been in before, but he actually gave me almost Timothy Chalamet vibes. But if you would have replaced him with Timothy Chalamet, it would have been a completely different film. Like he would have probably killed the role, but all you would be seeing is Timothy and not like the Yvonne character
yeah.
himself, which was like this really just nutty, strange, awkward kid who just wants sex the whole time in video games and that's it, and he's a spoiled little brat on the side of things, but you just really hone in on his character himself and not like how big he is in that role.
I think I'm gonna interject here and just go with my number two because we've already discussed it, and just to get it out of the way again. I think my number two is actually Dune number two,
Did you do that on
because
purpose?
no, it just worked out. It was divine. No,
June part two.
so I like Dune too. That was one of those like Alfred mentioned earlier. It was like there are certain movies you put on the calendar because it's like these are the ones I have to go out. I'm going to put some pants on and go out into the real world and make the trek. Not eat or drink anything for 2 hours prior, so that I'm not bothered by my bladder throughout,
No
Or
and
get
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 the
the
run
pee
pee.
app.
popcorn.
Get the pee app.
Yeah, or get the run pee. Yeah. Yeah, the run pee, and buy the popcorn, preferably the Dune bucket,
Oh yeah, it
the
looks really cool.
sandworm.
The sandworm going into it.
It looked very, very not sexual,
You know what's
but
crazy though? I
but
think
then
that they started the trend of the popcorn buckets though because of the sandworm bucket. Now every single film comes out with like their own crazy concoction of a
some
popcorn bucket.
crazy bucket.
Yeah, and if it
Yeah,
wasn't for
I
the
think
worm,
I think the Deadpool and Wolverine bucket was just like a complete rip on the, but instead they made I think they made Deadpool's mouth like really open or Wolverine's.
well,
It's
what
like
was?
so
Did
perverse.
you see the alien one I had? It
I
looked
mean,
like a
Yeah,
dildo, a black dildo.
yeah, yeah, you're like
I'm
these
like,
popcorn buckets.
Oh, that's
You could
funny.
take those 2 popcorn buckets and put them in a health class.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't think anything would fit that alien's head. I'm sorry.
yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh my God! But yeah, to get away from the phallic popcorn buckets of 2024, I remember watching Dune Part Two on the screen and being like, man, this thing looks amazing. Villeneuve he can't go wrong in my eyes, honestly, with even just the look of it. Like, but to me, I actually thought Part Two was slightly worse than the first one. It's not a bad movie, but I think it's just a little below the first one because the first one seemed to be like I knew it was going to be a part one of a story, and it told like a pretty encapsulated story. Of course, you're left a little high and dry at the end, but you know that that's what it's going to be. So it's like, and for what they got in the first film, it actually is kind of like okay, this is its own film. And then Dune Part Two, something about the pacing felt a little bit off to me compared to the first one.
I thought I felt
Something's felt
rushed. Part 2.
Exactly. That was literally my next word. I was going to say some parts felt really rushed, and then a couple of other parts I was like, why are we taking some time on this? But overall, it is very good. And for this year, again, I have to caveat my list. I'm going to list a bunch of other movies that I did not see that could supplant any one of these movies. So, but for right now, that is my number two of 2024.
All you have to do, Afram, is watch the original Dune, and it just
I did. I
reminds
did.
you. Just keep watching it over and over. Every time you have a bad thought about the new ones, just watch that original.
Yeah, it's just going to keep going up and up and up. Yeah, oh my God. I did actually. So when I saw Dune Part One at the theaters, I came back and I was just blown away. I was still thinking about it. It was one of those that like I brought home with me in my head, and I was just thinking about it nonstop. Like, man, that was so sick. Man, it looks so cool. This and that. And then I don't know. I think it was either when Dune came out. I think they might have put it on Max, like on the streaming platform. And I guess because they did that, they also had the old Dune on there. And I was like, oh, I've never seen this one. I wonder
Mm-hmm.
how like. But I think it was David Lynch, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure. I think,
David
Yeah, it
Lynch.
was
yeah.
David Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember
I
like,
think he wants to erase his
yeah,
name
and I
on
remember,
that film.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And yeah, and I remember thinking like, okay, well, I heard it's not good, but screw it, like let me watch it. And yeah, it's first off, it's Dune, like part one, part two, and whatever part three is going to be called, like all in one film. And that film is actually shorter altogether than the first Dune, like Dune Part One is. Yeah, so it's like really compacted, yeah, into yeah, but and it's also not good. I mean, the acting is like kind of laughable at times. Obviously, you got to give some breaks to the CG stuff or not. Well, whatever the computer graphics were back then with like the armor, the blocky armor, they look like PlayStation One characters. But yeah, Dune Part Two, solid flick. Go check it out if you haven't seen it. Well, obviously watch
I
Part
mean,
One
part
first.
one, it's like you get to take time with it. They're still building the world with it. And then in part two, it's, just from kind of before the movie, they're going to end it at a certain point. And I remember kind of past the halfway point in part two, I was like, ooh, they got a lot to squeeze here. And they basically just squeeze it in,
Well, there's so
Yeah,
didn't you
and
see every week they would roll out a new actress or actor and it was like, "Oh my god, this person. Oh my god, this person, this person." They added so many new characters in this one where it was just like there wasn't enough time for each character to really like go into their backstory and like bring them on.
oh my god, I just remembered that Christopher Walken is in that, and he's
so is
like not
Elvis.
good. Yeah, he's not good in that film. Like talk about like an actor taking you out of the experience. Christopher Walken as the Emperor, I think that's who he was. Oh my god, that took me out so bad.
Oh man.
I should have used Run P. I should have used Run P through his scenes.
Now
It's
Afrim,
because you're
Christopher
waiting for him
Walken
to
did a
come back
Wild
on
Robot character.
Severance. That's why. We're waiting for him to come back on Severance to grace us with his presence there.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, even the underrated Outlaws. It's actually on Amazon Prime. It's a British show. He's on that one. That one's pretty good too with Stephen Merchant. But I heard what you said, Alfred, and I ignored it because I do not do a good Christopher Walken impersonation. Now, who's number two is next?
What's
Who's
your
number
number
two at
two,
the number two?
Steve?
Oh, okay. So number two, I just saw it last week at a screening, and so I don't think
Ooh.
anybody here has seen it yet. Is the new Robert Eggers film Nosferatu?
Whoa, that's number
Wow.
two.
That's
Gosh,
not-
what stole your number one, Steve? Oh man, that's gonna give us chills.
Yeah,
Boy.
I actually
I-
thought that was going to be your number one.
Yeah,
I'm a
almost
huge
Well, this is it.
vampire
I was-
addict, Steve. So I've been waiting for this. This is like Bram Stoker's. Like I've watched everything that he created
Right.
back in the day. So I'm. Oh, tell us about
So
it.
that was, I was so excited to see this ever since he announced it, because this is probably my favorite director around right now, Robert Eggers. When he came out with The Witch about a decade ago, it kind of changed what horror movies were. And I love that movie. I love his super obsessive attention to detail. When he made The Northman a few
Oh,
years
the
ago,
Northman was so
That was
good.
excellent.
oh my God, he was using like
So
period
good.
accurate wood to make the ships, and sourcing it locally, and everything was like had to be exact in that. The costuming, everything, it's amazing. And he, excuse me, he shoots things using available lighting. He can shoot by candlelight. He shoots everything on film. He's a very old school director with a very modern look on things. So I was very excited because the Nosferatu story is one of these kind of tales of cinema, which is, in other words, it was made 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, 1922. So this is a remake of that movie, which was a ripoff of Dracula. So the Nosferatu, it was like this German, a film crew made this thing, and they just kind of changed the name. But it's basically the same story as Dracula. Bram Stoker's widow sued them to have all of the, and she won, and all of the prints were ordered destroyed. And then it was like years later, one of these prints, and you hear about these sometimes, these silent movies, where like these prints are found, and this was one of those. They found the original Nosferatu, and now it's considered a classic today. And it's a little bit, I wrote about this in my review, that I think it's a little campy by today's standards. Count Orlok, who is the quote, is the Dracula equivalent. I don't know, has these weird hand expressions that it is just like,
isn't that Pennywise?
But sort of. So yeah. So in this new one, speaking of Pennywise, is Bill Skarsgård plays Count Orlok, and but this movie, being a remake of a movie that was made over 100 years ago, and to take on this tale of essentially Dracula in a new way was exciting, because it still tells the same story as Nosferatu, which is a little different than Dracula, but it focuses on, what I really liked is it focused on this character, the Count, as just being kind of more of a force of evil, like an evil presence, not just for this one woman, but for like the world. I mean, this is an evil vampire. It's not like these, usually vampires are kind of portrayed as dashing romantic types. They're kind of like anti-heroes in a way, and there was
Brad Pitt Interview with the Vampire.
This guy. Oh, yeah. Yes. So, but Robert Eggers, the movie is just visually stunning, absolutely stunning. It's one of these, the cliche, you could take one frame out of every film and hang it on a wall and it would be a beautiful print to hang. And it's true. There's just, every shot is just so well composed, and the music is great. And Lily Rose Depp, Johnny Depp's daughter, is in it, and she's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And she's also just kind of just goes for it, just uninhibited in her role. Really, really good. And Willem Dafoe is in it once again. One of my favorite people.
Was it Lighthouse, right?
Lighthouse was the other Robert Eggers.
Oh yeah, so I like that movie a lot.
Lighthouse was very bizarre. Robert Pattinson and it's a bizarre.
I actually saw that. I actually saw that at the theaters. Back like years ago. I don't know what year it came out, like 2019 or I forget what year it was.
Yeah. Like
I actually went on a date, and I brought the date to see that. Date. It was the first day.
Oh, that's awkward.
Well, that didn't work out for a reason, Afrim.
Yeah, and then afterwards we got dinner and we were talking about the film. And she was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really like it." And I was like, "What? I thought it was pretty damn cool." And I started going into like how they were like slowly losing their minds and all this shit. And she's like, "Can we get the check, please?" Robert Eggers, man.
Like, if you don't understand Eggers, it's over.
Yeah, I'm like, we got to go. Bye.
All right, Alfred. What's number 2 for you and Karlo?
Let me give you Karlo. So Karlo's number 2, I actually haven't seen, but it's from Sundance. It's the Jesse Eisenberg movie A Real Pain, which is basically like a buddy road trip comedy drama, and it's with Jesse Eisenberg and Kieran Culkin, and they're like mismatched Jewish American cousins that go to Poland. So he loves it. It's up on the site. I haven't watched it, so I can't really opine on it.
I mean, what my favorite Jesse Eisenberg film is Sasquatch Sunsets.
Sasquatch is amazing.
Just threw it out there. Really made me think after the film was done. I started pounding on sticks of wood and tree trunks after.
Actually, Afrim and Steve, have you seen Sasquatch Sunset? I think it's on Hulu now.
No.
Actually.
Please watch it.
No, I did not. No.
Jesse Eisenberg's best Oscar-worthy role ever.
Grab a
this
few
sounds
beers.
like tinged with sarcasm.
No. It's actually quite good.
A slight tinge.
Maybe my number 1. Just kidding.
Wait, am I
you're
losing my
watching this
mind,
and
or
you're
did
like,
Jesse
what the
Eisenberg
heck is
play
this?
Lex Luthor once?
Yeah.
Lex
Yes.
Yeah.
You can play
Luthor?
Lex
Yeah, I think
Luthor.
he did.
He did, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I
Yeah,
thought
he
I
did.
was like losing my mind.
I
Okay,
mean, when you
so
watch this, you're gonna be like, what the heck is going on? And then you'll start to like it after you leave, and in like the days to
It
come.
takes a
that's.
day to settle in, and then you can't stop
It's
I was
talking
gonna
about
make a really
it.
bad joke. Oh my god.
Emily and Karlo had to hear me talk in Sasquatch the entire South by Southwest. I refused to communicate in English. I only spoke in Sasquatch.
Oh my god. This sounds like fun already.
Okay, Alfred,
Speaking
what's
of
your
well,
second?
yeah, sorry,
My
yeah,
number
go
two
ahead,
you've
go
all
ahead.
mentioned already, but Conclave is my number two.
Uh-huh.
And just kind of additional points from what you had all said earlier. I mean, the fascinating thing about Conclave is, yes, it's about religion. Yes, it takes place in the auspices of Voldemort running a conclave to replace the Pope. But
No Harry Potter around.
that story, I mean, you could have told a similar story to that no matter what. It's almost like a political movie that wasn't necessarily political, if that makes sense. Like the political tensions there, I think it's beautifully shot. It's beautifully made and it's wonderfully acted. And you don't really know. It's kind of funny because you have these characters. You have John Lithgow, and you're like, am I going to get Third Rock from the Sun, John Lithgow? Or am I going to get Raising Cain, John Lithgow? Like,
Is it crazy,
I don't know.
like how he's able to adapt so comedically, but then like go and like be in a horror film or be in a drama series? It's insane to me.
Yeah.
John Lithgow, like
It's
I don't know what we're gonna get
weird
from
to
him.
me that it's like this is the same guy from like Harry and the Hendersons. And he looks the same to me. Like that guy and Steve Martin like always look the same to me no matter what.
Steve Martin.
Yeah, and another thing with Conclave is when you look at religious drama as a genre, there really isn't that much if you think about it. You have Spotlight, right, which won an Oscar, and it was about all the abuses from the priests, and then you've got stuff like Angels and Demons, which is, I guess, borderline between someone that reviews drama and stuff that Steve
my
likes, but it's
personal
not
favorite
violent
for
enough.
Steve is The Pope's Exorcist.
Oh, Pope's Exorcist.
Oh my
is
god,
like
I was just
another
about to
one that's,
mention
like,
that movie.
ridiculous. But it's good. It's
I was about to
entertaining.
say, is Conclave a prequel to the Pope's Exorcist?
Well, you gotta appoint
Oh,
one
man.
before you can appoint an exorcist.
That's so bad.
But yeah, in Conclave, there's a classical music piece by this French composer Ravel, and it's called Bolero. You've definitely heard it. It's been used in different
Mhm.
commercials. And the crux, yeah, exactly. And the crux of that song is it's long, but every time they repeat, they're adding some kind of layer, whether it's like a layer of instrumentation or whatever it is. And so in Conclave, it's almost like that cinematically in the story because they're adding some kind of wrinkle. There's like something that you need to know about, or there's some kind of quirk, or there's someone did this and someone did that, and it's slow burn. And when I was watching it, I was like, yeah, I can kind of settle into this groove and see what they're gonna reveal. But thankfully, they don't spend too much time doing that because, I mean, the amount of rounds that they had to vote, you'd be there for like 6 hours, right? So,
Yeah.
but definitely one of the best.
I like that it was sort of it's sort of like a who done it in a way, and you're trying to guess along as you're watching this who will be the next pope. You have your cast of characters. It's going to be one of these 6 guys or however many it is, and so you can kind of play along.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, you know what?
And I mean,
this is a good point. One thing that's genius. Sorry to cut you off, but one thing that's genius is like as you're watching the film, you really start to actually like distrust the guy you're following around the entire time.
Yeah.
Where you're like, wait a minute,
I
like
was just
is he?
about to
Is he?
mention that.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
The problem is, right, with Ralph Fiennes, you have no idea at any moment, is he going to be the guy from the menu. Is he going to be Voldemort and just like combust, or is he going to be Eamon Goth from Schindler's List? I mean, he was the Nazi, for God's sakes.
Yeah. Yeah, he was literally sniping people like from a perch for fun, right?
Well, he's typically a villainous character, so I feel like going into it, you kind of assume, is he going to be the good guy in this?
He's probably going to be the bad guy. Twist.
Because he's essentially supposed to be like the neutral party, right, running the show, so he can't really be good or bad, but at the end of the day, you're like...
He's our eyes, he's our eyes into the movie, too. Kind of our frame of reference.
Yeah, exactly. All right, everyone, we've made it to number
Alfred,
one.
Would you say... Wait, sorry, before we continue. Sorry, Alfred, would you say that Ray Fiennes has a better performance in Conclave or Made in Manhattan?
Oh, Lord.
Made in Manhattan with Jennifer Lopez. Are you
really
serious?
I think he went full method for Made in Manhattan.
That was pure evil in the fourth dimension.
Yes.
He like actually leapt out and made you feel like crap at home with that film. All right, sorry. All
right,
we'll go to the number one.
So moving on to number one, mine is probably others as well, but it's The Brutalist. Spent basically half my day in the theater, and it was worth every minute. I'm assuming, Alfred, this is yours as well. So if it is, then we should probably talk about together.
I wrote the review on it, and it is, man, it is long, and you're going to hear about everyone just making a big deal about how long it is, but
P-App definitely is on this film for sure. Even though there's an intermission in between.
How long are we talking?
It's 3.5 hours, and there's actually an intermission.
Minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
3 hours, 35 minutes.
So
there's a mini, was it 15-minute intermission in between that they give you too?
15-minute intermission. They put a photo. There's a countdown clock, right? But the story is neatly put together. It's like part 1, part 2, and then an epilogue. Fictional story about an architect that comes basically out of the concentration camps, comes over, and it's like an American dream kind of story. And you've got Adrian Brody as this person, and this is his best movie probably in his career.
But also talk about how he's like a Jewish Hungarian, and this is during World War II, where he's like basically escaping from the Holocaust to America.
Right. So,
and he's separated essentially from his wife.
He escaped from Bremerhaven, and he's split with his wife. So he makes it over to America first. His wife comes in later, played by Felicity Jones, that comes into the second part of the movie. So the first part is basically him getting to America, him getting to Ellis Island, and kind of seeing how it all is. And he's this, and he has to live with his cousin, who has a furniture store, and his cousin happens to know a wealthy patron, and this wealthy patron wants to renovate this study and turn it into a library. And he basically has a genius renovation, a beautiful one that's I mean, if you're like an architect buff, I am a brutalist buff. Dad's an architect,
so I'm biased,
but he does a tremendous job on renovating the library. And the wealthy father of this patron is Guy Pearce in probably his best movie since Memento, because since Memento, Guy Pearce is usually like a supporting actor in a lot of movies, and he finally gets more of a meaty main role, and he's excellent in this as well. But Guy Pearce's character gets home, his mother's dying, so he's all pissed, and he chews off Adrian Brody, like kicks him out of the house, and a certain time.
But you have to say, because the reason he kicks him out is so the son.
He kicks him out because his mother. No. He kicks Adrian Brody out. He kicks Adrian Brody out because he's upset at what is going on. But then he later attributes himself being upset because his mother dies the next day. Right? So he ends up finding Adrian Brody again because his work ends up being featured in like an Architectural Digest type magazine. And he ends up finding him to have him commission this like mega building that has to be like a gymnasium, a place of religious worship and the
Wants it
lounge
to be
and
a
all these other
community
things
center and a
on
monument.
like a big community center on a plot of land. Right? That's essentially what the movie is about, and he's a brutalist architect. But it's not so much an architecture movie as it is kind of like it's kind of like Once Upon a Time in America. There's a rags to riches element to it, and a lot's going to be made on, I don't know if you've watched Brady Corbett's last movies, but like he did Vox Lux with Natalie Portman, right?
You know
So
that
like
he only shot that film, by the way? I was reading in 22 days, and then this film he only shot in 33 days. That's it.
yeah, in 33
That's
days on a
wild.
$10
Yeah.
million budget, they shot it on VistaVision, which there were purposes for that because they didn't want to shoot on too wide an angle of a lens so that the edges of the screen crop and it distorts the image. So what
Because he was
VistaVision
saying the
allows them to
library
do-
scene, Alfred, too, right? When they were filming it, depending on how wide they framed it, it looked like a completely different room. So with the VistaVision, the
But
35...
that's what I'm talking about. With a wide angle lens. So like when you're on non-Vista, when you're on a regular 35 millimeter film stock, and you're shooting on wide angle lenses, with anything it's going to distort, right? So like what you're looking at is not going to be what you're trying to see. So what VistaVision allowed them to do is they didn't have to use as wide an angle. So they were using like 50 millimeter lenses, but because they were using VistaVision, it still allowed a wider perspective, if that made sense. So it was actually key to achieving the look of the film, and it is one hell of a film. I mean, this is like a story that you need time to tell, and there are a lot of different layers and a lot of different characters, but technically impressive. I think narratively impressive. I don't want to use the cliche they don't make movies like this anymore, because they literally don't. VistaVision was a thing in the 50s, right? Like, for example, movies like the Ten Commandments were shot on VistaVision, and they used to road show these movies around the country, and you'd get 2 showings per day. And what's funny is when they were doing it here in New York City, they only gave the movie 2 showings per day as well. So, you're gonna need that app to time your breaks, but if you can just make it to the intermission,
Is it a movie that needs to be seen at a theater?
100%.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah,
Yeah. You need that full view of the architecture. And what's crazy, too, it feels like it's shot in the US, but it's fully shot in Hungary. And it's because of the tax breaks that they got out there.
Yeah.
And the director, Brady, he basically talks about how he thinks every student should learn about like pricings when it comes to making films, because students don't learn that and they don't understand it. So I think when he was initially pitched on how much this film would cost, it was like 3 times the amount. So he started like really understanding, no, it's not going to cost this amount, and we can cut here and here and here to like get it within this budget. It looks like a $200 million film in my opinion, but it's not. It's crazy. They use very little CGI. And a lot of the places that they filmed in, they found those destinations, and they had very, very few edits. Because VistaFilm is also it's double the price, right, Alfred, for them to price it out?
They had to be really, it's not as expensive as IMAX, right? But this movie was shot on a $10 million budget. And you're going to watch this thing and you're going to be like, how? Like it's incredible. Like, given the talent that's in the movie, just the cinematography is just so good, and I'm just shocked that it was $10 million.
Yeah, and the story is really interesting.
No, I just have 2 quick questions about the film, like the actual theater going experience for this film. One, is the 15 minutes of the intermission included in the 335?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so really it's 320. Okay.
It's
And then
320.
secondly, is there a preferred format to go see this in?
70 millimeter.
Like, I mean, for the people out there who don't live near like Lincoln Center or whatever, what would be like the next what would be the next like preferred choice?
If they're showing it like so I think I've seen some screenings where they're showing 70 millimeter, not in an IMAX 70 millimeter. They're just actually showing kind of a 70 millimeter version of the film. If you can find one of those, and for example, in the AMC app, it'll tell you, it'll show you like 70 millimeter or 35 millimeter. I recommend seeing the 70 millimeter. But
Because
if you had
the
to make kind
building
of a more blanket
specifically,
choice,
Afrim, and like just anything he's concocted to be able to see it visually, like you have to see it in its entirety, or you don't get the extent of what they're trying to showcase for you. Because even, you know, when I used to research Brutalist, like any type of architecture, like all of our videos for our other channel, it's all Brutalist architecture that we're filming in front of, because that's always been my favorite. It's very bland and basic. But I mean, the story after it's finished, like you actually think it's a real true story. That's how it's like displayed to you. You almost want to go and
characters are
Google and be
really
like, wait a second, is this character? This isn't a fictitious character. There's no way. Like this has to be real. And then, you know, Adrian Brody actually talks about his background, and you realize like he was meant for this specific character. It's like so fitting of his background and him and his family actually coming and immigrating into the US, and then also understanding like where he brought his accent from, because, you know, his accent changes over time as well. When he's immigrated to the US, his English isn't very good. And over time, adapting that, kind of showcasing the growth through your voice and language is pretty crazy, you know, to have to like perfect that throughout this like 3.5 hour film.
yeah, and he had the advantage of, you know, his mom is actually an immigrant from Hungary, you know, also Jewish, so it really kind of helped him in the role. And, you know, the name of the film, Brutalist, it's, in the beginning, you're like, okay, it's about an architect. I get it, brutalist architecture, but there is actually brutality that unfolds
Throughout,
in the
yeah.
film, and I can't really spoil that for you. But there are different forms of it, like different forms of torture that his character goes through. But it's multi-layered, and you know, Brady Corbet. Sorry, don't say Corbett. It's Corbet.
Corbet, like
you know,
sorbet.
He's quoted as saying, look, it's a film by adults for adults, you know, like sit through it, it's going to be worth your time. It's essentially like,
and he actually wants you to fill the time too. He says that. He's like, this is a long movie, and I want you to feel that sense of time. It's supposed to feel that, because you're going through the lifetime journey of Laszlo, which is like decades, you know. And the ending, the granddaughter will make like a statement, but it kind of brings like the whole movie together and kind of just interprets like what the meaning is behind everything. And Felicity Jones, even though she's only in part of it, is incredible. I mean, it's like insane what her character goes through physically, emotionally, and how she adapts to Laszlo along the way is pretty just like crazy to see on screen.
How's the pacing of the film? Because, like, for example, with Conclave, it's a slower paced film, but there were never any scenes in which I was sitting there like, okay, let's move on to the next thing already. You know, like it was always like just before that. And some movies are really
It's
good at that,
faster
where it's
than
like, I know,
Conclave.
what'd you say? It's a ma-
He said it's
A
faster.
little bit faster than
Sorry,
Conclave. Yeah.
oh, okay. Oh, okay. That's pretty good.
It's just so
I mean,
different.
when I say a little
it's so
bit,
different.
I mean a little bit.
Yeah, it's so different too. It's hard to compare it to Conclave. I mean, it's really a journey of this guy's lifespan. I mean, you're going through it with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like the pacing in Brutalist. So you never really, I wrote this in my review, but like you never really feel like this thing was like 4 hours long. You know, like I watched some clunkers, like The Rock in Skyscraper. I mean, I felt that like that movie was 2.5 hours, 3 hours long.
I mean, Stephen
And I'm sitting here
King
for the
VHS
Brutalist.
tapes, 6 of them for The Stand. Do you remember when you'd have to rent and there'd be one missing and you couldn't finish Stephen King? Like you're like, what?
Yeah, so I mean, it's long, yes. Like you know, you go into the theater, it's 3 o'clock, you get out, you're like, whoa, that's crazy, but it's worth it. Like you'll remember it.
All right. Did you you didn't mention Carlo's number one, right?
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
Carlos. Well, Marissa can actually talk about Carlos number one, and his number
can
one
I?
is. Yeah, I think you can talk about it very comprehensively.
It's not the
actually.
brutalist. What?
It's not the brutalist. It's almost as long. It's Wicked.
Oh,
Oh.
Wicked.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo. Yeah, I mean, I
Carlo's
kind of
also
talked about it a
musical
little
theater
bit,
guy,
but
so.
he is biased. He's big into Broadway, so that makes sense why that would land
Mhm.
as number one. And I think with like the choreography, and I mean, I think the biggest thing that most people had conflict with was the dreaminess of the coloring and texture of it. I think they felt like it was too cartoonish. But other than that, I mean, a lot of people just think that this is like one of the best adaptations of a Broadway show being brought back, to its original form. And they also brought back the original OG Elphaba and Glenda in the film as well, which was really cool to kind of like showcase where it started and kind of showcasing like where it is now in more modern times. And I like that they decided, I guess, to make it a two-part film as well, so it wasn't so crammed in the storyline. I think it would have been a bit too much. But if you're a Broadway fan, I feel like this definitely would land on anybody's top 5 list. I think it was just very well done, and you could see the effort that the actors and actresses went through in order to like emote these characters on screen. I think they even said that Ariana Grande still sounds like Glenda because she was like so into this, character where every interview it's like she sounds exactly like the character still.
She has the Austin Butler Elvis problem.
Oh my God, Austin
Oh.
Butler. They can take a class together. Getting rid of the accents.
It's weird because I feel like films breaking actors, I feel like a trend kind of started with Jim Carrey, and I think it was Man on the Moon, right?
Man on the Moon, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. And I feel like the tale of him like having his mind broken by the character or whatever. Now like I've heard that like way more often. I feel like I don't know of any stories like before that. Now it's like
Mhm.
oh, Heath Ledger like lost his mind playing the Joker. Like this Butler thing and the Glenda thing, and I was like, is it really like that? I don't know. Maybe some people's minds just work differently, but
I don't know. Well, there's different types of acting as well. With method acting, I think it's a little bit different style. So, yeah, I think it all
I think
depends.
I think it was Ben Kingsley. I'm not sure, but back in the day there was like it might have been Al Pacino or I forget who it was. It was something like a now famous actor that was playing like a hungry character or something, so they didn't eat for like a week or something, and they asked Ben
Christian
King. I
Bale
think it was Ben
in
Kingsley.
the
No, no,
yeah.
it might. I don't know if it was that or it might have been earlier, and it might not have even been about eating. It was about basically suffering in real life to like see what it was like to be in that And they asked him about it in an interview, and they're like, "What do you think about that?" He's like, "I mean, it's like I'm not really impressed. I could do that without doing that. It's called acting. Like."
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
What
I
was
think
their
he literally
concept?
said
That's really funny, actually.
yeah, I think he literally said it's called acting, my dear boy.
That's my dear boy. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
I also think too with Wicked, like the soundtrack is so good, and like Defying Gravity has made its rounds across social media, and I'm pretty sure like everyone has played that song on a reel recently. And also one of the things I noticed too is as far as like merchandise goes, they literally partnered with everyone and their mothers. Like I walked into Bloomingdale's and it was all Wickeded out. Like makeup Wicked, clothing Wicked, handbags Wicked. Like everything was Wicked. It was like a flavored coffee that was a Wicked thing. Everything was partnered with Wicked. So it was like you couldn't even get away from like the advertisement that was everywhere for that film.
When are we gonna have the collab event we've all been waiting for? John Wicked.
But
So if
All
John
right, all right.
Wick did the Wild Robot trailer, that entice
No,
you?
we're not doing this. We're not doing this. This is going
That's
too long already.
funny. I know. All right. What's your number one, Afrim and Steve?
Well, I'll do mine. I'll do
Steve.
mine first because mine's not going to make any sense for anybody. It'll just go
I
quick
love Steve.
here. Because I had to look at the movie because I was thinking about Nosferatu could have been number one, but when I think about films that totally had an impact on me and thought this is the kind of movie that I absolutely love, it's Terrifier 3. This movie with Art
Oh.
McCloud.
Ah, whoa. That was a curveball, Steve.
That came out of left field.
Whoa.
I love this movie so much, and I think that this whole franchise, and I love everything about the whole. I actually wrote an article for the website about how this is now the highest grossing unrated film ever. And so he makes these movies, Damien Leone, with like a really limited budget. The first two films were basically like Kickstarter for crowd-funded movies, and he was approached with major studio wanting to back him for this third one, and they're like, well, we're going to throw all this money at you, but you got to tone it down a little bit so that we can get the R rating. And he was like, no, fuck that. I don't want your money. I'm going to make it the way. He literally is like that. And so he made this third movie with this limited budget, and it's like, I'm not going to get it rated. I don't want anything compromised in this film, which is all fine and good, but usually an unrated movie means you won't get shown in the movie theaters, because I don't know if it's like a sort of an
interesting.
unwritten agreement between cinemas and the studios that like, well, if you don't have an MPA rating, then we just won't show them, so it encourages you to get the rating and everything. And so he's like, well, fuck all that. But this movie got shown in theaters all over the place, and it became kind of a real life viral thing. Everybody was, challenging each other to watch Terrifier 3. And here it is, the highest grossing unrated film of all time. It was crazy business, and it just leads me to believe that I can't believe there's not other studios and filmmakers thinking, well, wait a second. Why are we spending money? Why are we compromising our art? Why are we censoring what we're doing when this guy can make a movie and believe everything in there he wants and get it shown in movie theaters? Why are we wasting money going to MPA?
Do you know what the budget was for Terrifier 3, Steve?
I think it was like 8 million, I'm going to guess.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Comparatively low budget.
Our number ones are budget films.
Well, it's just crazy what some of the best films just they don't have these crazy budgets, and I feel like when you are given $200 million, it's like you throw it in the trash can. You don't know what's happened.
Oh, I was wrong. It's $2 million budget.
$2 million. Wow.
Wow.
And in comparison
to, I'm just drawn to these movies that are low budget but do a lot with that money, because most movies, in fact, I think that the days of these bloated blockbusters from Hollywood they've got to be coming to an end, because they
Sorry.
I mean, they can't sustain this stuff. Because for one thing, you're spending all of your money on these actors that you could hire somebody, like Honora, the people in that you don't know, and you would get an amazing film. You don't need to have these A-list actors in every film, but this is where they're spending a lot of their budget on. And a lot of the movies now that are doing so do perform well are spending like twice as much on their budget, on their marketing budget, as the movie costs. So it's like
Honora
what you're getting is a movie.
Honora was $6 million. Wow.
So you're getting these movies that are made to fit an algorithm. It's basically like what you're trying to do, like say with YouTube or something. It's like, well, this is what works really well, so this is what we need to do. And any movie studio that's going to spend $200 billion on a movie, they're going to make sure that nothing in it is going to be too edgy or controversial or anything like that. At least that's the way I see it. So when I see something like Terrifier 3 that just goes for it, and it's funny, it's fun, it's gory, it's there, this is also one of these things where you hear these stories about, oh, people were leaving the theaters because it was so gross and throwing up in the theater, and of course the director, shares all of this on his Instagram and everything, because these are these kind of stories that kind of tend to sell this, and it's just like the actors, losing their shit in a role or something. You kind of wonder how much of this is just kind of promotional stuff. But for Terrifier 3, I think for me it just checked all of the boxes. It was a thoroughly enjoyable film that probably 1% of the people watching this live stream will actually watch or enjoy. I consider it kind of a niche film, but then again, a lot of people saw this movie, and I can't help but wonder though how many of those people were like seeing it on a dare, like a dare.
Oh, yeah.
To watch this movie.
Well, we have a friend who was in
enjoy
Terrifier 2, Steve. Marissa was in Terrifier 2, everyone. Yeah.
Oh.
She was a news reporter.
Oh, okay. Because I had Elliot Fulham, who was the brother in that. He was on my podcast, and so he was also in Terrifier 2 and 3. And so it's fun they keep all in the family, and
I love that.
It's very close.
Does it get better, Steve, too, as it keeps going, like the storyline? So
I think so.
in comparison to 1, 2, and 3?
It's expanding on the Terrifier cinematic universe.
Oh.
Yeah, the TCU.
TCU.
So are they going to do a nun edition, Steve, for you? A Terrifier with nuns?
Gotta do one in space, yeah. So there we go. That's my number one, and that would be Slasher, by the way, which is also a return to Slasher. In fact, Art the Clown is brought back the Slasher genre. He fits up there now with the icons Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, and Leatherface, maybe Scream face. But there's only a handful of these really iconic characters, and he's one of them. And the marketing was great because he got into every Spirit Halloween store and everything. It was really
R.I.P. Spirit Halloween, or no, is it Party City?
R.I.P. Party City.
R.I.P. Party City. They shut her down 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Oh.
So sad. I was in a costume in Party City, a nerd costume. I was the model for it, and what was my other one? Yeah, I was a sexy nerd. Yeah, never saw that costume, never got to buy it, so yeah, sad day.
I actually tried to buy a costume because my costume failed this year, so I was like, crap, I need a last minute costume. And I went to Party City, and both versions of the Michael Myers overalls that I bought from there were like, 1, the sizing was completely off, and 2, the other one just ripped as soon as I put it on. And I was like, you know what? I'm kind of glad this place is gone now.
That's not right.
I know, that's not right. Sorry.
All right, Afrim, we're ending with you.
They had a good return policy, though.
What's your number one?
Okay,
you got to
so my number one.
Your number one.
Yeah. So all right.
Was
so
it this year,
I will
Afrim?
see your
2024, right?
Yes. I believe so. I will see your $6 million budget, and I will lower you by I think it was 5.5 million. So my number one film actually was just added recently to Netflix. So I'm going to rewatch it, as I have not seen it since Sundance, actually. And this was one of those things where, I was planning on going to see a film, and a lot of times at these festivals, your schedule changes last minute. And this was one of like my happy audibles, where basically I couldn't get into, like, it must have been, I saw the TV Glow or one of these other bigger films. And I was like, shoot, well, I'm here at this time, and let's see what else is playing. There's this movie called Kneecap
I knew
that's
it.
playing, and I was like, let me see what this is all. Yeah, and I was like, let me see what this is all about. And so
Steve,
I walked
Afrim
in there,
couldn't
and
stop
it was like
talking about this movie at Sundance.
It was
What
the best mistake.
Because it cut out on me.
Sorry, it's Kneecap, like your kneecap. Yeah. And so I am wearing pants, by the way. It's just shorts. So so that was like probably the best accident that happened to me at any festival in terms of like I was supposed to see one thing and I wound up seeing another. Almost all the other ones turned out to be garbage, like really bad. But this one was like, I was so thankful that I saw it. So basically, the premise is there's this Irish hip hop trio, and actually they started out as a duo. And there's a teacher who kind of is like not, he's not, he's just kind of coasting. He doesn't really enjoy his life. I think he's a high school teacher or professor. He's a teacher of some kind. And basically, he comes across these two troublemakers, and there's also this kind of like political thing going on in the background, which I wish I knew more about. And it's about how in England they're trying to remove the Irish language, basically. I think that's what it was going for. I think it was Gaelic or whatever. They're trying to remove it completely from like all the street signs and whatever. They just kind of want to make it like English only. And basically, because like less and less people are speaking it, they're afraid that the language is going to die. So these two hip hop artists, they actually rap in that language, and it's kind of like pissing off all the, the political people around and all the other people who are like clutching their pearls, like we don't want this language here anymore.
Right.
And it's not only that they're rapping in this language, but they're like really like they're throwing out drugs at their shows. They're not like role models. You know what I mean? And then basically they get in trouble, or one of them gets caught by the cops, and they bring in that professor to be a translator. And as he's kind of like talking to him, he's talking in that language with him, and he's kind of like, "Hey, bro, like, can you help me out? I'm trying to do something here." And he reads his like lyric book, his like little notebook, and he kind of helps the guy get off because he wants to see like what this is all about. And then eventually he winds up teaming up with them and goes, he becomes the third member of the hip hop now trio, and they start going around doing concerts everywhere and just like pissing a bunch of people off. And the reason why I like this movie so much is because it just felt so fresh. Like, I remember every like 5 minutes or so, something in the film happened where I was like, "Oh man, that's sick!" Like I never seen that, something like that before, and it was just really cool. Side note: do not be fooled, because Michael Fassbender is in the film, and he's like, you know, kind of like on the poster, basically, like his name, but he is in the movie for literally like 5 minutes. Yeah, which is pretty cool in a way because he's by far the biggest star in the movie, and he's like relegated to just like a small role. I mean, it's an important role, but it's a small role, and you're like, oh, I guess Michael Fassbender's in this, and he's in the first scene, so you're like, okay, cool, and then he just vanishes, and you're like, oh, all right, but you don't care.
Is
Like
that
the
where the
movie's just
budget
so
went?
good that
The budget vanished over to where
the 5.4 out of the 5.5 was for
went
him.
to Michael.
He might have even done it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might have even done it for free because the movie was just so cool. And then it's like, I mean, it basically, you know what? I'm not going to ruin it because I had a certain experience when I watched the movie that I don't want ruined for everybody else out there who knows nothing about these characters. Just go see, like, now it's on Netflix, so now you have no excuse. I know you're already having a subscription. Throw it on, check it out. I know you'll enjoy it, and you're gonna be like, yo, it was that guy in the corner of that screen with the maroon shirt on from Shade Studios that put me on.
Well, Afrim, are you saying that you and Michael Fassbender are both on a movie poster?
Oh, actually, surprise! Shade Studios is actually featured on a film poster for another really cool film that I definitely would have had it on this list had it not been for the fact that it did not officially like wide release in 2024. It was only at Tribeca, I believe, and maybe another festival after that. But I loved it. It's actually kind of a horror movie. So, Steve, I think if you get a chance, you should check it out. It's called The Damned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm not sure if the 2 weeks is in America also. It might be like a UK and
I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You got to look into that.
Because when I go to my AMC app, I see.
Froze for a second, Alfred.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't hear what you said. Say that again.
On the AMC app.
Oh, okay. Well, then, Steve, you know where you'll be.
I know. Well, you want to hear something crazy, Afram? Is there's another film releasing?
Yes.
I think it's on the same day called The Damned, but it's not horror.
So
How weird is that?
so that was always a problem because when I was researching the film for the review that I wrote, every time I would type in The Damned, there were two The
Oh
Damned,
yeah.
and then in parentheses 2024, and I always had to make sure I was like looking into the right one. But The Damned, I really enjoyed. I don't really care that much. Sorry, Steve. I know this might hurt you a little bit because we're such close friends, but I don't really care much for horror films. I mean, I enjoy them, but I feel like a lot of modern ones just don't do it
What?
for me. But yeah, I know. I'm
I
sorry.
want a
I'm sorry.
divorce.
We're gonna send Steve your Chucky video, okay, Afram? Sorry,
Oh
it's
my
happening.
God, no,
I'm
no.
sending you this video.
No.
You're gonna die. He actually made a homemade horror film himself during COVID, Steve, and you
I
can.
heard about that.
We have to send
I
it
think
to
it's
you.
more of
You
a
need
comedy.
to see this.
Yeah.
Didn't
I
even
gotta see that.
crack
I gotta see
10
that.
grand
Slasher.
of the budget.
Yeah, the budget was actually really low. It was like $18. But but anyway, yeah, so actually I mean there were two horror films that I saw this year that I kind of liked and they were both from festivals. One was called The Moo Guy. It was an Australian film.
Yeah.
Moogai. That one I liked a lot, but The Damned I liked way more. The Damned to me was like one of the best horror films. I mean, it sucks because it missed the cutoff by like 3 days, because that probably would have been like my number 3 or 4. I really enjoyed that one a lot. But the
See,
whole
I think
reason that we
you can
mentioned
still
The
add it
Damned,
to your list.
yeah.
See,
All right,
I
so
believe you
it's
can
an
add those
honorable
films to your list.
mention that comes out in about 2 weeks. And if you go to the theater, look at the poster, and you will see a very, very, very familiar name
I
on
love that. You got
on
a
that
full
poster.
quote.
In the
That is
voice
so
of
cool.
Yeah,
Afram.
yeah, frightening as
so
hell.
How does
Also, I
that
had to
work?
bring
Which
that
is
up
literally-
because
How does that work?
Afram's so high on the dam.
Which was
but I'm
literally-
looking at
it was-
Marissa's shirt.
I
and
told you.
Where is Challengers on your list?
It didn't
Oh.
make my list, but it was really good. Challengers was really good. I'll give it to you. It was good. But there was just some films that beat it this year.
Actually,
Zendaya
can
was
I
better at Dune.
can I do my my other like wish I would have seen list real quick? I just
We're
want to
gonna
run
have
down
to
them
make
briefly.
it speedy here, Afram. We're
All right,
going on
sorry,
an
sorry.
hour
I
and
think it's
40.
Okay.
either that or I've got to get the Run P app here. So yeah.
Sorry.
Hour 40, I
I'll do
think
it
it's
very
been
quickly.
2 hours and 40 minutes.
Sorry. Listen, this is not the Brutalist. We will not beat the Brutalist tonight. So let's see. Wicked, The Wild Robot, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, which I have not seen, Honora, A Real Pain, Super/Man, the Christopher Reeve story, Ghostlight, All We Imagine Is Light, The Order, The Brutalist, Nosferatu, The Substance, and Challengers. Those are all on my. I wish I had the time to see
You
them,
got a lot
and
of
I'm
homework.
sure. I know, and I'm sure. I guarantee you, folks at home, that my top 5 would be very different had I seen all of those films. So that's the big thing. And then the last thing I want to say is that the best film I actually saw, technically in 2024, because it was the first time I ever saw it, was Schindler's List. They don't make movies like that anymore.
What did they tell you all? Schindler's List. He compares every film to
I had to
Schindler's.
mention it. I had to mention
is not a
because
joke.
I saw it for the first time this year, and it immediately jumped into like my top 10 at least, possibly my top 5. So it's that to me was actually the best movie I personally saw in 2024, but obviously did not come out in 2024.
That
Came out
was in
30 years ago. I believe.
1993, sir.
Yeah, you missed
Yeah,
it by a
yeah,
couple
look at that.
decades. It's cool.
Yeah, I was off. I was a little more off than I was with the Iron Claw.
Just backdated on the website a little.
Yeah.
1993 review from the archives.
Yeah, that is my highest rated film thus far.
Wow.
Very nice.
But
That's a great list.
I have nothing more to say. So in case you guys want to throw in some other ones that maybe you were interested in seeing.
I mean, I think everyone has a great top 5,
I
and
think that's a
Karlo,
good
you were
list.
here with us in spirit. great top 5 as well. I think we'll have to do something for the Oscars too next year, and maybe talk about who we think will be taking an Emmy home. That might be something fun. Just got to catch you up on some films, Afrim, because
Oh yeah, well, obviously you heard my list.
when you're in
You
Aruba,
saw my
I
book,
want
my
you
book.
watching movies on the beach.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing.
I think
I'm
the good
watching The
news,
Brutalist on
everyone
my phone
watching,
on a beach.
Don't
the
do
good news for
that,
everyone
please.
watching is
Yeah.
your 4 favorites here are also going to be at Sundance. So, we got to kick it off again.
Wait, whoa, what?
What? I
What'd you
said
say?
your
What's gonna
favorite
be what's gonna
4
be at
that are
Sunday?
here will be at Sundance. So we got to kick it off yet
Oh,
again. Where
oh
a lot
boy.
of these movies that we
Okay.
saw,
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
you know,
Yeah. Sundance.
that we're mentioning this year, Afram, I mean, you saw them almost a year ago.
Yeah.
We got a head
Yeah,
start.
yeah, and yeah. I mean, it's crazy because writing these reviews actually helped them like to remain more fresh in my head. I go back and read my own voice, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I thought.
Oh, ah.
Yeah.
Weird how
It'd be
that
great if
works.
there was like a website or an. It'd be great if there was like a website or an app where you could log your own film review so that you could keep a running. Thanks to our sponsor, Letterboxd.
Letterboxd. Shout out to Letterboxd, who is not yet our sponsor, but
Yeah.
soon to be
Letterboxd.
down the road, right? We love you, Letterboxd.
We'll see. Yeah, check us out on there. We all have accounts.
Yeah.
You
Be
all
sure
have
to check us
accounts. For all
out.
of you watching on Twitter, they're all there.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into our first official group spotlight on our favorite films for
A lot of fun.
2024. Be sure to follow us here, and we're all going to be in Sundance together here next year, which is crazy to say. Next year.
It's literally a month from now.
1 month
I
from
know.
today.
1 month from today,
Yeah.
we are going to be screening together in a cold winter wonderland, which I'm really excited about. But thanks, guys, for joining. This was so much fun, and we'll keep everyone posted on our next live video. Until then, hit that subscribe, hit that like. We'll catch you all on the next one. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. I love you, Steve.